The Book of Heaven. Volume 25. My Jesus, life of my poor heart, you who know how bitter I am, come to my aid. Surround the little newborn of your divine will with your flames to give me the strength to start another volume. May your divine Fiat overshadow my wretched will, may it no longer have any life, may your divine will be able to replace it and itself write, with the characters of its light, what you, my love, want me to write. And so that I don't make mistakes, be my blower. And it's only if you commit to accept to be my word, my thought, and my heartbeat, and to lead my hand with yours, that I can make the sacrifice of starting to write what you want again. My Jesus, I am here, near the tabernacle of love. From this little adored door that I have the honor to contemplate, I feel your divine fibers, your heart pulsating, emitting infinite flames and rays of light with each beat. And in these flames I hear your groans, your sighs, your incessant supplications and your repeated sobs, because you want make your will known. Give one's life to all. I feel consumed with you repeating what you do. That is why, while you look at me from inside the tabernacle and that I look at you from my bed, please strengthen my weakness, so that I can make the sacrifice of continuing to write. But in order to be able to say what Jesus told me, I have to mention briefly that was founded here in Corato, a house desired and begun in memory of the Venerable Father Annibale Maria de Francia. That his children, faithful to the will of their founder, ended by giving it the name of House of the Divine Will, as the Venerable Father wanted. And he wanted me to enter this house. On the first day of its opening, in their goodness, the sons, daughters, and reverend mothers brought me to a room located in such a way that, when the door is opened, I can see the tabernacle, attend Holy Mass, and to be just under the gaze of my Jesus in the sacrament. Oh! How happy I am that from now on, if Jesus wants me to continue writing, I could do it, keeping an eye on the tabernacle, and the other on paper. That is why I pray to you, my love, to help me and to give me the strength to make the sacrifice that you yourself ask. As we were about to open this house, we could see people, sisters, little girls coming and going. I felt all impressed. My sweet Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter, these people you see coming and going for the opening of the house of my divine will symbolize the group of people present when I wanted to be born in Bethlehem, and the shepherds who came and went to visit me, to me little baby. It showed everyone the certainty of my birth. In the same way, this group of people who come and go marks the rebirth of the kingdom of my divine will. Look how the whole of heaven echoes my birth when the angels, to celebrate it, announced to me to the shepherds and, turning them on, made them come to me. I recognized in them the first fruits of the kingdom of my redemption. And now, in this group of people, little girls and sisters, I recognize the beginning of the kingdom of my divine will. Oh! As my heart exults and rejoices, and as the whole of heaven is in feast. Just as the angels celebrated my birth, they celebrate the beginning of the rebirth of my Fiat among the creatures. But see how much more neglected, poorer my birth was. I didn't even have a priest near me, but only poor shepherds. On the other hand, for the beginning of my will, there is not only a group of sisters and little girls from outside, and people who flock to come and celebrate the opening, but there are also an archbishop and priests representing my church. It is the symbol and the announcement to all that the kingdom of my divine will be formed with more magnificence, with more pomp and splendor, that the kingdom of my redemption itself, and everyone, kings and princes, bishops, priests, and all peoples, will know the kingdom of my Fiat and possess it. Therefore, celebrate this day too, where my sighs and sacrifices, as well as yours, to make known my divine will. See the first dawn and the hope of seeing the sun rise soon from my divine Fiat. Then came the evening of this day dedicated to the Queen of the Rosary, the Queen of Victories and Triumphs. And that's another wonderful sign. The Sovereign Queen conquered her Creator and adorned him with her chains of love, drew him from heaven to earth to form the kingdom of redemption. Thus the sweet and powerful grains of her rosary make her victorious and again triumphant before the Divinity, conquering the kingdom of the divine Fiat to bring it among the creatures. I had not thought at all that I would move to the house of the divine will, near my prisoner Jesus, that same evening. I only begged him not to let me know when it happened, so as not to desecrate such an act by my human will, so that nothing comes from me and that I can do the divine will in all things. It was 8 o'clock in the evening when, unusually, the confessor came. Prayed by the Reverend Mother's superiors, he obediently imposed on me to satisfy the superiors. I resisted for quite a long time, for I thought that if the Lord wanted it, it would be during the month of April, when the weather will be warmer, and then we should think about it. But the confessor insisted so much that I had to give in. Also, at about 9:30 in the evening, I was brought to this house, near my prisoner Jesus. And this is the little story that explains why I am in the house of the divine will. I will now take up what I was saying. In the evening, I was alone with my Jesus in the sacrament. My eyes remained fixed on the small door of the tabernacle. It seemed to me that the lamp that was continually shaking was going to go out, but it was reviving. And my heart was startling, lest Jesus remain in the dark. And my ever-kind Jesus, manifesting himself in me, took me in his arms and said to me, "My daughter, do not be afraid, for the lamp will not go out. And if it were to be extinguished, I would have you, living lamp, a lamp which, with your trembling, better than with the trembling of the Eucharistic lamp, said to me, I love you, I love you, I love you. Oh! How beautiful is the trembling of your I love you. Your trembling tells me your love for me. By uniting yourself to my will, of two wills we become one. Oh! How beautiful is your lamp with the trembling of your I love you. It cannot be compared to the lamp burning before my tabernacle of love. Especially since my divine will being in you. You form the trembling of your I love you in the center of the sun of my Fiat. And I see and hear not a lamp, but a sun burning before me. My prisoner is welcome. You came to keep your prisoner company. We are both in prison, you, in a bed, and me, in the tabernacle. It is right that we are close to each other. Especially since one is the reason that keeps us in prison. The divine will. Love. Souls. How pleasant it will be for me the company of my prisoner. We will feel it together to prepare the kingdom of the divine Fiat. But know, my daughter, that my love had foreseen you. I was the first to imprison myself in this cell waiting for my prisoner and your sweet company. See then! As my love was the first to run towards you. How much I have loved you, and how much I love you. For so many centuries of imprisonment in this tabernacle, I have never had a prisoner to keep me company, to stay so close to me. I have always been alone or, at most, in the company of souls who were not prisoners, in which I did not see my own chains. Finally, the time has now come for me to have a prisoner, to keep it continually close to me, under my sacramental gaze. A prisoner whom only the chains of my divine will keep imprisoned. I could not have a sweeter or more pleasant company. So, while we are together in prison, we will take care together of the kingdom of the divine Fiat. We will work together. We will sacrifice ourselves together to make it known to creatures. My life passes before my Jesus in the sacrament. Oh! How many thoughts invade my mind! I thought to myself, after 40 years and a few months that I had not seen the tabernacle, that I had not been given to be in front of its adorable sacramental presence 40 years not only of prison, but of exile finally. And after such a long exile, I returned as in my homeland. Prisoner, but no longer exiled. Near my Jesus in the sacrament. And not once a day. as I did before Jesus made me a prisoner, but always always. My poor heart, if I still have it in my chest, feels consumed by so much love of Jesus. But as I thought of this and other things, my greatest good, Jesus, manifested itself in me and said to me, "My daughter, do you think I kept you in prison for 40 years or more? By chance? Without having a great design? No. No. The number 40 has always been significant and preparatory to great works. The Jews walked for 40 years in the desert before reaching the Promised Land, their homeland. After 40 years of sacrifice, they had the benefit of taking possession of it. But how many miracles, how many graces, to the point of having nourished them with heavenly manna during this time. A prolonged sacrifice has the virtue and strength to obtain great amounts from God. Things. Myself, during my life on earth, I wanted to stay 40 days in the desert. Far from all. Even from my mother. Before going in public to proclaim the gospel that was to form the life of my church. That is, the kingdom of redemption. I wanted to remain 40 days resurrected in order to confirm my resurrection and to place the seal on all the benefits of the redemption. Also, I wanted for you, my daughter, to manifest the kingdom of my divine will. I wanted 40 years of sacrifice. But how many graces have I not given you? How many demonstrations? I can say that during this long time, I have placed in you all the capital of the kingdom of my will, and everything necessary for creatures to understand. Thus, your long imprisonment has been the continuous weapon. Always fighting with your Creator Himself. That you may manifest my kingdom. But you must know that all that I have manifested to your soul, the graces I have given you, the many truths you have written about my divine will, your sufferings and all that you have done, was nothing but collecting materials for the purpose of building. Is now time to put them in order and prepare everything. I didn't leave you alone, but that I've always been with you. To gather the necessary things that must serve my kingdom, thus. I will not leave you alone to put them in order and show the great edifice that I have been preparing with you for so many years. Therefore, our sacrifice and work are not finished. We must continue until the work is accomplished. I am close to my Jesus in the sacrament, and every morning there is blessing with the Most Holy. As I prayed to my sweet Jesus to bless me, He manifested Himself in me and said to me, "My daughter, I bless you with all my heart. Better yet, I bless my will even in you. I bless your thoughts, your breaths and your heartbeat, so you can always think of my will. Breathe it continuously, and may my will alone be your heartbeat. And for the sake of you, I bless all human wills, that they may be prepared to receive the life of my eternal will. My dearest daughter, if you knew how sweet it is to me, how happy I am to bless the little girl of my will. My heart rejoices in blessing the one who possesses the origin, the life of our Fiat, which will bring the beginning, the origin of the kingdom of my divine will. And as I bless you, I pour into you the beneficent dew of the light of my divine will, which, making you all brilliant, will make you appear more beautiful to my sacramental gaze. I will feel happier in this cell seeing my little girl, prisoner, clothed and chained by the soft chains of my will. And every time I bless you, I will make the life of my divine will grow in you. My will brings into the depths of the soul the echo of all that I do in this holy host. I do not feel alone in my actions. I feel that she is praying with me. When our supplications and sighs unite, we ask for one and the same thing. May the divine will be known and may His kingdom come soon. My life is happening near my prisoner Jesus. Every time the door of the chapel opens, which often happens, I send 3 kisses, or 5, to my Jesus in the sacrament. Or I pay Him a brief visit, and He, manifesting Himself in me, said to me, "My daughter, how pleasant your kisses are to me. I feel that you are kissing me with the kisses of my will itself. I feel my divine kisses themselves that on my lips, on my face, my hands, and in my heart. Everything is divine in the soul where my divine will reigns. I feel in your actions my love that refreshes me. The freshness, the kindness of my divine will itself which embraces me, and loves me. Oh! How pleasing my divine will that operates in the creature is to me. I feel that while I dwell in her, she gives me back and unfold before me all the beauty and holiness of my own actions. That is why I have such a great desire that my will be known. To be able to find in creatures all my deeds, divine and worthy of me. I now go on to say that my sweet Jesus seemed to be waiting for me here, in this house, near his tabernacle of love. To give the signal to the priests to make the decision to prepare the writings for publication. And consulting each other on how to do it. They read the 9 excesses of Jesus. Those he had in his Incarnation and which are reported in the first small volume of my writings. And as they read, Jesus, in me, listened to listen, and it seemed to me that Jesus in the tabernacle was doing the same thing. With every word he heard, his heart beat harder. And with each excess of his love, he started again, even stronger. It was, as if the strength of his love made him repeat all the excesses he had had in his Incarnation. And as if unable to contain his flames, he said to me, "My daughter, everything I told you on my Incarnation, my divine will and on other things, was nothing but the overflow of my contained love. But after pouring into you, my love continued to be repressed. Because he wanted to raise his flames higher. In order to invest all hearts and to make known what I had done and wanted to do for them. As everything I have told you remains hidden, my heart is living a nightmare that compresses me and prevents my flames from rising and spreading. That is why, hearing them read and make the decision to take care of the publication, I felt the nightmare move away and to lift the weight that compressed the flames of my heart. And he beat harder, and throbbed, and he made you hear the repetition of all these excesses of love, even more, since what I do once, I always repeat. My constrained love is a suffering for me, one of the greatest, which makes me taciturn and sad. Because as my first flame is lifeless, I cannot free others who devour and consume me. And therefore, to those priests who want to take away this nightmare from me, by making my secrets known and by publishing them, I will give a very surprising grace and strength to do so, and the light so that they know, first, what they will make known to others. I will be in their midst and guide them in everything. Now it seems to me that every time the reverend priests begin to reread the writings to prepare them, my sweet Jesus is attentive to see what they do and how they do it. I am only admiring the goodness, the love of my beloved Jesus who, being attentive in my heart, echoes it in the tabernacle and from inside this cell, does what he does in my heart. I remain confused when I see this, and I thank him with all my heart. My poor spirit wandered in the divine will. I felt all the truths announced by my greatest good, Jesus, as so many suns investing my little human will. So much so that, charmed by such a variety of light, she no longer felt like she was acting. And my greatest good, Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter, every truth I have manifested about my divine will is not only a divine life out of myself, but also has a sweet enchantment to delight the human will, who, charmed by mine, will feel under the spell of an inactivity that will leave the field free to my divine will. Thus, every truth about my divine will be a terrible army against the human will. But do you know what will make it terrible? Light, strength, love, beauty, holiness will be the weapons used to wage war against the human will. The human will, in the face of these weapons, will undergo a sweet enchantment and will let itself be conquered by the divine Fiat. Therefore, every additional knowledge about my will is one more enchantment that the human will undergo. It can be said that all the truths I have told you about my divine will are all ways that allow him to make his way in the human will that will then prepare and form my kingdom among creatures. And just as every truth has an enchantment, every act performed in my will by the creature is an encounter with my will to receive all the strength of this divine enchantment. Thus, the more acts she performs of my will, the more it loses human ground to acquire divine. And if it is immersed entirely in my will, the only thing left to her will be the memory that she possesses a will. But let her hold her to rest and as enchanted by my divine will. After which I continued my actions in the divine Fiat. Following his, I accompanied the conception of Jesus in the womb. And Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter, how great is the analogy between my conception in the womb and what I do in each consecrated host. See, I came down from heaven to be conceived in the womb of my heavenly mother. It is from heaven that I descend to be consecrated, hidden, under the veil of the species of bread. In the darkness, motionless, I remained in the womb. In the dark, motionless, and even smaller, I remain in each host. Look at me, I am here, hidden in the tabernacle. I pray, I cry, and my very breath is silent. In the sacramental veils, my divine will itself keeps me as dead, annihilated, restricted, compressed, while I am alive and gives life to all. O abyss of my love, how immeasurable you are! In the womb, I carried all the weight of all souls and sins. Here, in every host, no matter how small, I feel the enormous weight of the burden of sins of every creature. And although I feel crushed under the enormity of so many sins, I never tire. Because true love never tires and wants to overcome by the greatest sacrifices. He wants to expose his life for the beloved. That is why my life continues, from the moment of my conception until my death. In every sacramental host. But I want to tell you the pleasure I have in having you near my tabernacle, under my sacramental gaze, and the analogy that exists between you and me. See, I am hidden here under the empire of my divine will. Ah! It is my will itself, its power, which holds the prodigy of hiding me in every host with consecration. You are in your bed only by the empire of my Fiat. Oh! It is not bodily diseases that hinder you, no, it is my will alone that wants it that way. By making you a veil, it hides you and forms for me a living host, a living tabernacle. Here in this tabernacle, I pray continuously. But do you know that it is my first prayer? May my will be known. That his law that keeps me hidden can govern all creatures, reign, and dominate in them. In fact, only when my will is known and forms in them his kingdom. Only then will my sacramental life give all its fruit. The accomplishment of so many sacrifices. The restoration of my life in creatures. And I am here hidden, making many sacrifices. In anticipation of this triumph, the kingdom of my divine will. Pray too. Echoing my prayer. I hear your continual word. By putting all my actions and all created things in motion. And you ask me, in the name of all and all things. May my will be known and form in all his kingdom. Your echo and mine are one, and we ask the same. That all things may return to the eternal Fiat. That his just rights may be restored to him. See, then, how great is the analogy between you and me. But the most beautiful thing is that what I want, you want it too. We are both sacrificed for such a holy cause. That's why your company is sweet to me. In the midst of so much pain that I have to suffer, she makes me happy. I feel that my poor and small spirit is as fixed in the divine Fiat. I feel all the strength of the sweet enchantment of the light of its truths, the enchanting scenes of all the wonders and varieties of beauties it contains. And even if I wanted to think about something else, I don't have the time. Because the sea of the divine will whispers incessantly. Her whisper muffled and suffocates while keeping me immersed without her sea to whisper with her. O power! O sweet enchantment of the eternal will! How admirable and kind you are! And I would like everyone to whisper with me, and I prayed to the sovereign queen to give me the whisper of her love, of her kisses, in order to return them to Jesus. Because I had received communion and I felt that, in order to please Jesus, I wanted to give him the kisses of his mother. And my ever-kind Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter." The Queen of Heaven had the glory and honor of owning the divine Fiat. And everything she did was in this Fiat. It can be said that all his actions are wrapped in the infinite sea of the divine will and swim in it like fish in the sea. And the soul that lives in it makes rise not only all the acts of the Heavenly Mother, but makes them stand up again and deposits in the field all the works of its Creator. Only the soul that lives in my will can sit at the divine table. Only she can open all its treasures, enter the sacrarium of the most intimate secrets of the divine hiding places and, as the owner, take them and return them to his Creator. And, oh, how many things it sets in motion! It makes all the divine works rise up and place themselves in attitude. And sometimes she plays a divine melody. Sometimes she plays a scene of the most beautiful and touching. Sometimes she puts all her love in motion and making him stand up again. It forms an enchanting scene, all of love, for its Creator. It is thus the renewal of all the joys and of all happiness for its Creator. See, when you wanted to give me the kisses of the Mother Queen, you set them in motion and they ran to kiss me. It is the soul that lives in my divine will. As of someone who has entered a royal palace. The king who dwells there has concerts, objects with which to form the most beautiful scenes, and works of art of various beauties. And the person who comes and sits down and plays music by sound, the king runs to hear the sonata. Then, seeing that the king takes pleasure in it, this person moves forward and puts the objects in motion, implements the scene. The king remains delighted, although he knows that these things belong to him. However, it is this person who set them in motion in order to please him. So it is for the soul that lives in my divine Fiat. She enters the royal palace of her heavenly Father. Finding many and varied beauties, she sets them in motion in order to rejoice, delight and love the one who lets her in. And like, there is no good that my eternal will does not possess. There is no joy, love, and glory that the soul cannot give to its Creator. And, oh, that it is pleasing to us when we see this fortunate creature in the royal palace of our divine will, who want to take everything, wants to set everything in motion, wants to touch everything. It seems that she is only satisfied by taking everything, to be able to give us everything, to make us a party and to renew for us our joys and our happiness. And we, seeing her, welcome her, and we ourselves say to her, "Dear girl, hurry up, hurry up." Plays for us one of our divine sonatas. Repeats for us one of our touching scenes of love. Renews for us our happiness. And it renews for us sometimes the joys of creation. Sometimes those of the Sovereign Queen. Sometimes those of the redemption. And it always ends with its pleasant chorus, which is also ours. May your will be known and reign on earth as in heaven. I continued my round in the divine will to follow all his deeds. My sweet Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter, all that I have done in our divine will, in creation as in redemption, has not all been absorbed by the creature. But everything is in my divine will, waiting to give himself to the creatures. If you could see all that is in my divine Fiat, you would find an army of our deeds, taken out of us to be given to the creatures. But because our will does not reign, creatures have not, nor the space where to put them, nor the ability to receive them. And this divine militia has been waiting for 20 centuries for the moment to set off. She wants to bring to creatures divine gifts, garments, joys, and weapons that each of our acts possesses. Thus she wants to form together with them a single divine army, a celestial militia, and that the kingdom of our divine will may reign among creatures. It is necessary for the creature to absorb in itself all these acts of the divinity performed out of love, so it can enclose in it everything that my Fiat has. It is necessary that it internalizes them and consumes them in itself. Thus, my divine will consumed in the creature will bring within it the whole divine army. All our deeds that came out of us out of love for creatures, in creation, redemption, and sanctification, will go into creatures. My divine will, returned and consumed with them, will feel triumphant and will reign, dominant, with our divine army. That's why I do nothing but continually make you drink in small sips. Everything that has been done by us and what is done in creation, redemption, and sanctification. So that I can say once again, as I did on the cross, everything is consumed, I have nothing else left to do to redeem man. And my will repeat. I consumed it in this creature so that all our actions were enclosed in it, I have nothing to add. I have consumed everything so that man can be restored and the kingdom of my divine will can have his life and diet on earth as in heaven. Oh! If you knew how many works I do in the depth of your soul in order to form this first kingdom to my divine will. In fact, once I do the first one, it will pass from one creature to another in such a way that my kingdom will be populated more than all the others. In forming this kingdom, my love is so great that in the soul in which my divine will must reign, I want to enclose all that I have done in the redemption, all that the Sovereign Queen has done, and all that the saints have done and will do. Nothing must be missing in this soul from all our works. And for that, I set in motion the totality of our power, of our wisdom and of our love. After which I thought of the feast of the day, that is, the feast of Christ our my sweet Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, my daughter, the Church only grasps intuitively what she must know about my divine will and how his reign must come. This feast is therefore the prelude to the kingdom of my divine Fiat. In truth, the Church does nothing but honor my humanity with these titles which, by right, are due to him. When she has returned to me all the honors that belong to me, she will honor and institute the feast of the kingdom of my divine will that animated my humanity. The Church is moving forward step by step. Sometimes it institutes the feast of my heart. Sometimes she dedicates the century, in all solemnity, to Christ the Redeemer. It now proceeds, with greater solemnity, to the institution of the feast of Christ the King. Christ the King means that he must have his kingdom. He must have peoples worthy of such a king. And who will ever be able to form this kingdom for me, if not my will? Then, yes, I will be able to say, I have my people, my Fiat trained them for me. Oh! If Church leaders knew what I have manifested to you on my divine will, what I want to do, his great prodigies, my ardent desires, my painful palpitations, my anguished sighs. For I want my will to reign, in order to make everyone happy, in order to restore the human family. Then they would feel that in this feast of Christ the King, there is nothing but the secret echo of my heart, which echoes in them. Thus, without them knowing it, he makes them institute for me the feast of Christ the King in order to awaken their attention and their reflection. Christ the King. And his real people, where are they? And they would say, let us hasten to make known his divine will. Let her reign so that we can give a people to Christ the King, as we have called him. Otherwise, it was with words that we honored him, but not in fact. My poor intelligence feels as if I am delighted by the light of the divine Fiat. But this light does not only give warmth and light. It is a carrier of life that is centralized in the soul. It forms in it its own warmth and light. And, from this center, the divine life is reborn. How beautiful it is to see that the light of the eternal will possesses virtue to revive the life of his Creator in the heart of the creature. And this happens as often as this divine will bows. In order to make the creature aware of other manifestations of itself. My mind was running through this light. Then, my sweet Jesus, manifested himself in this light in which he seemed immersed. He said to me, my daughter, the truths I have manifested to you about my divine will, are all lights that have emerged from our divine womb. To fix yourself in you, but without detachment from the center of your Creator. In fact, light is inseparable from God. It communicates itself, settles in the creature, and never loses the center from which it came. How beautiful it is to see the creature, with all these lights fixed in it. These have the virtue of making the one who created it rise up again in the creature, as many times as truths have manifested themselves to her. What I have manifested to you about my divine will are countless truths. There are so many of them that you couldn't count them, many lights. That is, many rays of light are fixed in you, who are descended from God, without detaching himself from his divine womb. These lights form in you the most beautiful ornament, and the most beautiful gift you can receive from God. These truths are fixed in you, and thus they give you rights over divine properties. These rights are as numerous as the many truths I have manifested to you. You cannot understand the greatness of the dowry that God has constituted for you with these truths, which, like so many lights, are fixed in your soul. The whole sky is amazed to see in you so many lights, all filled with divine lives. And when you communicate them to other creatures, that light expands to go and settle in other hearts, but without ever leaving you, and form the divine life everywhere. My daughter, what a great treasure has been entrusted to you with these many truths that I have told you about my divine will. This is a treasure which has its source in the divine bosom and which will give light without ever stopping. My truths are more than the sun that illuminates the earth, clothes it and fixes itself in it. By fixing himself, he gives birth on his face and for everything the effects of the good contained in its light. But, jealous, he does not detach his light from his center. And this is so true that when it moves to illuminate other regions, the earth remains in darkness. On the other hand, the sun of my truths, without detaching from its center, settles in the soul and forms in it an eternal day. After that there was the blessing of the Blessed Sacrament. And I prayed to him from the bottom of my heart to bless me. Jesus was manifested in me. He echoed what Jesus was doing in the sacrament. He raised his right hand and, blessing me, he said to me, "My daughter, I bless your heart and affix upon it the seal of my divine will, so that your heart, united with my divine will, may throb in all hearts so that you may call all hearts to love him. I bless your thoughts and seal in them my divine will, so that you can call all intelligences to know her. I bless your mouth, so that my divine will can flow into your voice and you can call all human voices to speak of my Fiat. I bless you whole, my daughter, so that everything may call into you my divine will, and that you can run to all to make it known. Oh! How much happier I feel to operate, to pray, to bless the soul in whom my divine will reigns. I find in her my life, the light, the company. Everything I do rises immediately, and I see the effects of my actions. I am not alone if I pray and work, but I find company and someone who works with me. On the other hand, in this sacramental prison, the accidents of the host are mute. They don't say a word to me. I do everything alone, without finding a single sigh that would unite with mine, not a heartbeat that would love me. On the contrary, for me there is only the cold of a tomb, who not only keeps me in prison, but buries me. And I have no one to say a single word to, nor anyone to confide in. Because the host does not speak, I am always in silence and, with divine patience, I wait for hearts to receive me, in order to break my silence and enjoy a little company. But in the soul in which I find my divine will, I feel repatriated to the heavenly homeland. After going through several days of deprivation of my sweet Jesus, my poor heart couldn't take it any more. I felt him defeated, and I distinctly remembered his many visits. His kind presence, his delightful beauty, the kindness of his voice, his beautiful and numerous lessons were all memories that hurt me, undone me, and made me languish after my heavenly homeland like a poor pilgrim tired of his long journey. And I thought to myself, everything is over, and I hear only a deep silence, an immense sea that I must cross without ever stopping to ask, everywhere and in all places, the kingdom of the divine will. Tired, I began to do my usual round to follow his actions. My sweet Jesus, manifesting himself in me, hugged me to give me strength, and he said to me, "My daughter, just as the sea whispers continuously, I hear in you the whisper of my divine Fiat. And you, with your prayer, you form in his sea your continual whisper. When he whispers, you pen. Sometimes the sun, and it whispers light. Sometimes the heavens, and he whispers the stars. Sometimes the wind, and he whispers moans and cries of love. Sometimes the earth, and it whispers flowers. You thus sink into your whisper. Sometimes light. Sometimes the heavens. Sometimes the stars. Sometimes the wind. You sink. Lamentations of love. Inexpressible moans of a wounded heart, and delusional cries of unrequited love. And sometimes all the blooms that I have created flow. Oh! What beauty in my sea and yours! Oh! How inferior the sea of the land is to them! For she whispers, but without enclosing the heavens, the sun, the wind, and all things in its whisper. But it includes only fish. While the sea of my will, and in it the whisper of your prayer, contains all my works. This is done, because the divine will keeps the heavens, the sun, the stars, the sea, and everything in itself, as in its own power. And when you whisper in her with your prayer, you find them all. The sea, over its continual murmur, forms its gigantic waves. You too, in the sea of my divine will, in addition to the continual murmur of your prayers. When you increase your ardent desires, your sighs, because you want the kingdom of my divine will, you form gigantic waves of light, stars, groans and flowers. How beautiful these waves are! And I, from this tabernacle, hear the murmur, the roar of your waves that come to pour into my sea. Here in my tabernacle I have my own sea where I whisper continuously with my prayers. When I hear your waves coming, I unite your sea to mine, which are already one. And I come to whisper with you. And I no longer feel alone in this tabernacle. I have my pleasant company and we whisper together. In our whisper we can hear Fiat. 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 May he be known and restored his kingdom on earth. My daughter, live in my will. Pray in her. It is to carry heaven to earth, and earth to heaven. It is therefore our true and total triumph, our victory, our divine conquests. So be faithful and attentive to me. After that there was the blessing with the most blessed sacrament. I have been fortunate to receive every day in these last days of my life here on earth, since I hope that my exile will end as soon as possible. And my kind Jesus, at the moment when they were giving me the blessing, manifested himself in me and he said to me, "My daughter, I bless you, but I would not be satisfied if I were alone in blessing you. I ask everyone to accompany me. The Father and the Holy Spirit. The whole heavenly court. So that all may bless the little girl of my divine will. Wherever my will reigns. All in heaven and on earth feel a powerful force that unites them with me to do what I do. In order to centralize on this soul all the goods contained in my divine will. Therefore, when they see me bless you, all begin to bless you as well. Thus begins in heaven a kind of feast, of competition, to bless the one in whom my will reigns. And to make this more solemn, I call all things created in order to that no one can stay away and may bless my daughter. I ask the sun to bless you, so that he may bless you by giving you his light. I ask the water to bless you when you drink it. I call the wind so that it can bless by blowing. In short, I ask everyone. When they bless you, finding in you my divine will, they themselves feel blessed in return. Finding in you the will of their Creator. The power of my divine will calls everyone, unites the whole celestial family, and puts them all in celebration. when it must act on a soul in which it dwells and dominates. Therefore, in this sacramental prison where I have near me my prisoner, I feel the joys that my divine will can give me in the heart of our little girl coming to me. My many sentences are interrupted. When I have to bless you. When I descend sacramentally into your heart. When I feel that I am being looked at from this tabernacle and I return your eyes to you. Knowing I have something to do for the little newborn of our will. Or to give it to it. I put everything aside, even my sorrows, and I celebrate because my divine will possesses countless joys and an eternal feast. That's why I want to. May you rejoice with me, and echo my blessing. May you bless me. In the sun, in the water, in the air you breathe, in the beating of your heart. I will feel that you bless me in all created things. I feel all abandoned in the divine will, and despite the privations of Jesus, my poor spirit is taken with an irresistible strength to follow his actions. I believe that it is the divine will itself which, having subjugated mine, continues its course by calling all its actions as if it were doing them. And I, following her in her actions, I thought of the early days of creation, when everything was happiness in man, and that by being in the will of his Creator, he lived in his unity where he could receive everything and give everything to the Supreme Being. Unity means everything. But as I thought of this, my sweet Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter, we have created man in our likeness, so that he too possesses his human unity. So when he speaks, works, walks, etc., we can call all this the effects of his unity because -1 is his will. -1 is his head on which all his actions depend. Therefore, it can be said that it is the strength of his will. Who speaks? Who works? Who works? And is its effects. If man did not have this unity, all his actions would be in contradiction with each other. This is what happens with the sun. From the top of its sphere, one is its act of light. As he possesses the unity of light given by his Creator, although his act is one, its light effects are innumerable. Now, for the creature who acts and lives in my will, the human will stops. His life ends and no longer has a reason to exist. For then begins the life of the unity of my will. My act is unique. Everything he has created, or can do, can be called the effect of this single act. Thus the soul, alive in this unity of my divine will, as in its own center, is present in all the effects of this single act. Oh! How beautiful it is to see this happy creature in all the effects that our will knows and can produce. It runs in the sunlight as the effect of our will. In heaven. In the sea. In the wind. In all things. She runs. As the human will runs in all human acts. And as sunlight runs in all its effects. In the same way, the soul runs in the Fiat, in all the effects it possesses and produces. That is why life in our divine will is the greatest of wonders. If our divinity wanted to make it a greater one, it could not. She couldn't find anything larger, more prodigious, more powerful, more beautiful, happier than our will to give to the creature. Because by giving our divine will, we give everything. Its power forms our echo in the depths of the soul, and forms our most beautiful images. And the echo of human smallness becomes one with our own. In such a way that, uniting with our first act, it runs and diffuses in all the effects produced by the one act of God. After which my kind Jesus was seen as a little child, throwing his arms around my neck, said to me, my mom, she who does my divine will becomes a mother. My divine Fiat embellishes it for me, transforms it and makes her fruitful so as to give her all the qualities to be a true mother. Continues to form this mother with the reflections of the Son of my divine will. I exult and I take great pleasure in calling her my mother, my mother. And not only I choose her as my mother, but I call a large number of toddlers to give them to my mother so that she can be their mother. And saying that, he showed me in large numbers of little boys and girls around me. And the child Jesus said to them, "This is my mom and your mom." All these little ones were celebrating. They surrounded me with Jesus, who added, "Those little ones you see are nothing but the first cohort of children of my divine will. In her, all will be small. Because the divine will has the virtue of preserving their freshness and beauty, just as they came out of our creative hands. And as she called your littleness to live in her, it is right that, being the first, you are the little mother of these very small children." I felt all immersed in the supreme Fiat. My poor mind wandered among so many truths surprising to my poor ability. All the manifestations that my sweet Jesus had communicated to me about his holy will lined up in my soul like so many suns of a delightful beauty, all distinct from each other, with the fullness of joy and happiness that every truth possessed. Even though these suns seemed distinct, they formed only one. What enchantment, what delightful beauty! These suns besieged my little intelligence and I swam in this infinite light. As a surprise, I was thinking of many things about the divine will. My ever-kind Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter, dear daughter of my will. She who is the daughter of my will is in possession of the eternal day that knows no night. Everything is light for the soul that lives in my will. His possessions are light, beauty, joy, and happiness. And this is nothing because, in fact, by giving our will to the creature, we make it the owner of ourselves, and we put ourselves at his disposal. We let her do and earn whatever she wants. Because it is not a human will that dominates us but our own will that has moved into the creature. Therefore, what she does, says, and wins is not considered by us as something external to us, but as our own thing. We take pleasure in letting her talk, do and win. Especially since it wins us and we win it. Consequently, by giving our will to the creature, and the latter receiving it as her own life, we start a competition between her and us. It enters our divine field. As an owner, she dominates. We take so much pleasure in seeing his smallness, which contains our eternal will, to be domineering of our goods and even of ourselves. What can we deny to our will? Nothing. On the contrary, we take pleasure in going out. Our most intimate joys, our secrets, our eternal beatitudes so as to delight the smallness of the creature in whom it reigns. By making her dominate over them, we have fun and start the game between her and us. Therefore, by creating it, I could not give man anything greater than our will. Because it was in her alone that he could get where he wanted and do everything he wanted, to the point of becoming the master of what belongs to us. What we didn't do by creating the other things, who are dominated by us and who can't do what they want. Their rights are limited. In fact, in creating man, there was a more intense ardor of love. In this ardor of love, the whole has merged into nothingness. And nothing received again its life in the whole. In order to keep him more surely, we have given him as an inheritance our divine will. So that one can be the will, common goods, as far as the creature is capable of it. And that the love of one may be as great as the love of the other. That's why the thing, the most beautiful for us, the one that delights us and glorifies us the most is the soul in whom our divine will reigns. Because it alone does not make our love say it's enough to give. We always have something to give, always something to say. And in order to have more fun, we make it a winner even of ourselves. Therefore, be attentive, my daughter, and if you want everything, let our will reign in you. Jesus' privations become longer. When I see myself without him, I only languish after heaven. Oh! Heavens, when will you open your doors to me? When will you have mercy on me? When will you bring the little exile back to her homeland? Ah! Yes! Only then will I no longer miss my Jesus. Here, when he is seen, even though we think he possesses him, he escapes like lightning. And you have to be without him for a long time. Without Jesus everything becomes sadness. Even the holiest things, prayers, sacraments are martyrs without him. I said to myself, what good does Jesus allow me to come near his tabernacle of love, if it is to keep silent? It seems to me rather that it remains better hidden. That he no longer gives me his lessons on the divine Fiat. It seemed to me that he had his desk deep inside me and that he always had something to say to me. And now I hear nothing but a deep silence. I hear within myself only the continual murmur of the sea of light of the eternal will. And she always whispers love, adoration, glory, and embraces everything and everyone. While I was thinking this, my sweet Jesus was seen in me for just a moment. He told me, my daughter, courage. It is I who in the depth of your soul moves the waves of the sea of light of my divine will. Always, always I whisper in order to wrest from my heavenly Father the kingdom of my will on earth. You do nothing but follow me. If you didn't follow me, I would do it on my own. But you won't do that. You won't leave me alone because my Fiat itself keeps you immersed in it. Ah! Don't you know that you are the tabernacle of my divine will? How many works have I not done in you? How many graces have I not granted you to form this tabernacle for me? A tabernacle I could say unique in the world. In fact, as far as the Eucharistic tabernacles are concerned, I have them in large numbers. But in this tabernacle of my divine Fiat, I don't feel like a prisoner. I possess the infinite space of my will. I don't feel alone. I have someone to keep me eternal company, and sometimes I act by teaching and I give you my heavenly lessons. Sometimes I have my outpourings of love and sorrow, and sometimes I celebrate, to the point of having fun with you. So, if I pray, if I suffer, if I cry and if I celebrate, I am never alone, I have the little daughter of my divine will who is with me. I then have the great honor and the most magnificent conquest, the one I love the most, which is a human will, entirely sacrificed for me, and as the stool of my divine will. I could call it my favorite tabernacle in which I indulge so much that I would not exchange it for the Eucharistic tabernacles. For in them, I am alone, and the host does not give me a divine will as I find it in you. So that when it moves, I have it in me and I also find it in you. On the other hand, the host is not able to possess it and it does not accompany me in my actions. I'm always alone. Everything is cold around Mo. The tabernacle, the ciborium, the host, are lifeless, and therefore without company. That's why I find so many delights to keep, near my Eucharistic tabernacle, that of my divine will formed in you. So, just by looking at you, I break my loneliness. And I experience pure joys. What can the creature give me? Who lets my divine will reign in her? That is why all my designs, care, and interests are to make known my divine will and to make it reign among the creatures. Each creature will then be for me a living tabernacle, not mute, but speaking. I will no longer be alone, but I will have my eternal company. With my divine will split in them. I will have my divine company in the creature. I will thus have my heaven in each of them. Because the tabernacle of my divine will has my heaven on earth. I felt immersed in the divine will. I feel my poor and small mind fixed at an extremely high point of light. This point has no limits. Neither the height it reaches nor the end of its depth can be seen. As the mind fills with light, it is surrounded by light to the point of seeing only light. He sees that he takes a little of this light because there are so many. But his capacity is so small that he seems to take only a few drops. Oh! How good one feels in the midst of this light, because it is life, it is word, it is happiness. The soul feels in itself all the reflections of its Creator and it feels that the divine life is born within it. Oh! Divine will, how admirable you are! You alone are the fertilizer, the preserver, and the belocation of God's life in the creature. As my spirit wandered in the light of the supreme Fiat, my sweet Jesus manifested himself in me and said to me, "My daughter, a soul who lives in my divine will. It's more than bringing the sun down to earth." What would happen then? The night would be banished from the earth. It would be all the time full day. By always having contact with the sun, the earth would no longer be a black body, but luminous. He would no longer implore the effects of the sun, but would receive in itself the very substance of the effects of light. Because the sun and the earth would live a common life and form one life. What difference is there not between the sun in the heights of its sphere and the earth in its baseness? Poor land is subject at night, in the seasons, and to ask the sun to form the magnificent blooms, the colors, the sweetness, the maturity of its fruits. And the sun is not free to expose all its effects on earth if the earth does not lend itself to receiving them. Thus the sun does not reach some points of the earth and others are dry and without vegetation. This is nothing but the comparison between the creature who makes my divine will and lives in it, and the one who lives in the land of her human will. The first one brings down not only the sun of my divine will in his soul, but the whole of heaven. Therefore, with this sun, it possesses the eternal day, a day that never sets, because light has the virtue of putting darkness on the run. Also, the night of passions, the night of weakness, miseries, coldness, temptations, cannot be there with this Sunday. If they wanted to approach to form the seasons in the soul, this sun darty its rays and scares away every night by saying, "I'm here and that's enough. My seasons are seasons. Light, peace, happiness and of eternal flowering." This soul is the bearer of heaven on earth. On the other hand, for the one who does not do my divine will and does not live in it, it is more often night than day in her soul. It is subject. The seasons end. Long rainy days that disturb and tire her or to the long droughts during which she reaches the point where she lacks vital moods to love her Creator. The very Son of my divine will, because he does not live in her, is not free to give him all the good he possesses. Do you see what it means to possess my divine will? It is to own the source of life, light and of all goods. On the contrary, the one who does not have it is like the earth that enjoys the effects of light, and like some lands that are barely illuminated, but without effects. I was wondering, why did all of creation exult and celebrate with such joy? The Queen in her Immaculate Conception? My ever-kind Jesus manifested himself in me and he said to me, "My daughter, do you want to know why?" Because the divine will had the beginning of his life in the heavenly little girl, and consequently, the beginning of all goods in all creatures. There is no good, in my divine will, that does not begin, descends or goes up to its source. This heavenly little girl began her life in the divine Fiat, from the very moment of her Immaculate Conception. She belonged to the human race. She acquired with my will the divine life and she possessed with her humanity the human origin. It thus had the power to unite the divine and the human. She gave back to God what man had not given her and denied her, which was her will. And it gave man the right to ascend to the embrace of his Creator. It unites God and men with the power of our Fiat that it had in its power. That is why all creation, heaven and earth, and even hell, felt in the Immaculate Conception of this little Virgin, newborn in the womb of his mother, the force of order it placed in all of creation. With my will, she associated herself with all like their sister. She embraced them all. She loved everything and everyone. And all longed for her, loved her. And they felt honored to worship the divine will in this privileged creature. How could all of creation not celebrate? In fact, until that moment, man had been the disorder among all created things. None had the courage, the heroism, to say to his Creator, "I don't want to know my will. I give it to you as a gift. I want as life only your divine will. But this Blessed Virgin gave her will in order to live in the divine will. Thus all creation felt the happiness of the order which, through it, was returned to it. The heavens, the sun, the sea, and all things competed with each other to honor the one who, by owning my Fiat, gave the kiss of order to all things created. My divine will placed in his hands the scepter of the divine queen, surrounded her forehead with the crown of command, she made her the empress of the whole universe. I then felt annihilated in myself. The long privations of my sweet Jesus leave me lifeless. They have burned the little atom of my existence which, continuously exposed to the burning rays of the sun of the divine Fiat, feels all his moods dry in himself. While burning, never dies or burns. I felt not only oppressed, but defeated. And my sweet Jesus, as if he wanted to comfort me, manifested himself in me and, giving me a kiss, he said to me, "My daughter, don't lose heart. On the contrary, I want you to rejoice in your good fortune as my divine will. By putting on and piercing you, get rid of all your human moods. To give you, in exchange, moods of divine light. Today is the feast of the Immaculate Conception. Seas of love, beauty, power, and happiness have poured out of the divinity on this celestial creature. What prevents creatures from being able to enter these seas is human will. What we do once, we continue to do always, without ever stopping. In the divinity, his nature is to give by an act that never ends. Therefore, these seas continue to overflow. The Queen Mother is waiting for her daughters to let them live in these seas and make them little queens. However, the human will has no right to enter it. There is no place for it. Only the creature who lives in the divine will can have access to it. Therefore, my daughter, you can enter my mother's seas whenever you want. My divine will is your guarantee, and you will have free access with it. Even more, she is waiting for you, she wants you, and you will make her and us twice as happy because of your happiness. We are happier by giving. When the creature does not take our possessions, it suffocates in us the happiness we want to give it. That's why I don't want you to feel oppressed. Today is the biggest celebration. Because the divine will came to life in the Queen of Heaven. It was the feast of all the holidays. The first divine embrace that the creature gave to its creator by virtue of our Fiat that the sovereign little girl possessed. He was the creature at the table with his creator. Therefore, it is also your feast today, in a special way. Because of the mission that my divine will has given you. Also, come to the seas of the Immaculate Queen to enjoy her feast and yours. I felt transported outside of myself into these boundless seas. I don't have enough words to express how I felt. Therefore I stop here and continue. After which, later in the day, the confessor read in public what is written in the 15th volume on the Immaculate Conception. My beloved Jesus, listening to him read, rejoiced in me and he said to me, "My daughter, how happy I am! It can be said today that my Sovereign Mother receives divine honors from the Church. Honoring him in the first act of his life, the life of the divine will. These are the highest honors that can be given. Never has the human will been brought into life in it, but always, always the divine will. This is the secret of his holiness, his height, power, beauty, greatness, etc. It is my Fiat which, by its heat, erased the task of original sin and conceived it pure and immaculate. My Church, instead of honoring my divine will, the primary cause and the first act, honored its effects and proclaimed it immaculate, conceived without sin. It can be said that the Church has given him back human honors, not the divine honors she rightly deserved, because a divine will lived continuously in her. And it was a sadness for me and for her because I have not received from my Church the honors of a divine will living in the Queen of Heaven, and LNE recut pale honors qu'il wiete yent dus du fate tu elevate dun en el mim le luo u former la vie du Fiat supreme. Aujourd hue, le pretre a fate connaître. Que tout en la tate le prodige de ma volonté, et. K2 ses autres privileges et prérogatives viennent and xim lu et comme en conséquence des effets de cette divine volonté qui la dominait. Inzi on peut dire que aujourd'hui est célèbre la fête de l'Immaculate Conception avec décorum, gloire et magnificence divines. Cette fête peut être appelée plus justement Conception de la divine volonté dans la reine souveraine du ciel. This conception was the consequence of all that my divine will is and has done, and the great wonders of this heavenly little girl. After which, with a more tender insistence, he added, "My daughter, how beautiful and delightful it was to see this heavenly little girl, even from her immaculate conception. We looked and saw his little earth, taken from the human stock. In this little earth we could see the Son of our eternal will. As she was unable to contain him, it overflowed and stretched out to fill heaven and earth. We have accomplished a prodigy of our omnipotence, so that the little land of the little Queen may enclose the Son of our divine will. We could see the earth and the sun. That is why, in everything she did, be it by thought, by speech, by work or by walking, her thoughts were rays of light, her words were converted into light, everything that came out of her was light. Because, as his little land was smaller than the immense sun it contained, his actions were lost in the light. This little land of the celestial sovereign was vivified, animated and continually preserved by the Son of my Fiat. So she always seemed in bloom, but with the most beautiful blooms that became the sweetest fruits. She attracted our divine gaze and kept us in rapture, so much so that we couldn't stop looking at it. So great was her beauty and so great was the happiness she gave us. The Immaculate Little Virgin was all beautiful. Her beauty was delightful and enchanting. It is enough to say that she was a prodigy of our will. Oh! If creatures knew what it means to live in God's will, they would give their lives to know it and live in it. I merged into the divine will. I accompanied his actions in creation. My sweet Jesus manifested himself in me and said to me, "My daughter, all things were created by us, with a dose of happiness distinct from each other. Each thing created thus brings to man the kiss, the air that delights, the life of our happiness. But do you know what creature feels? All the effects of our many happinesses spread in creation descend into it to the point of being impregnated with it like a sponge? The one who lives in our divine will. Our happiness is not foreign to him because its taste purified by our Fiat not being corrupted by the human will. His taste and all his senses have the virtue of enjoying all the happiness present in the things created. We experience as much joy in seeing the one who makes our will as if she was sitting at the banquet of our happiness and fed by taking as many bites. That there are happinesses present in created things. Oh! How beautiful it is to see the creature happy!" At this moment, Jesus kept silent. I heard the music of the harmonium in the chapel. Jesus listened to listen, and he added, "Oh! How happy I am that this music delights the little girl of my will. And I, hearing it, rejoice with it. Oh! How beautiful it is to be delighted together. Making the one who loves me happy is the greatest of my joys. And me, Jesus, my love, happiness for me, it is you alone, nothing else interests me." And Jesus said to me, "I am certainly for you the greatest happiness. For I am the source of all goods and happiness. But I am happy to give you the little happiness. Just as I feel and enjoy them myself, I want you to feel and enjoy them with me." I said to myself, Jesus is so happy when I take pleasure in the little joys he has poured out in creation. Why then does he hurt me so much and make me so unhappy that I feel like I have no life in me without him? And by feeling lifeless, all happiness ceases to live in my poor soul. And Jesus added, "My daughter, if you knew what use my deprivations are. You feel like you don't live without me anymore, you feel like dead. Yet it is in this pain and death that my new life is formed. This new life brings you the new manifestations of the life of my divine will. In fact, as your sorrow is a divine punishment that has the virtue of giving you the impression To be dead, but without dying. It has the virtue of reviving my very life. It disposes your soul to listen and to understand the important truths of my divine Fiat. If I didn't deprive you of me so often, you would not have the new surprises of your Jesus, his many teachings. Haven't you seen for yourself, how, after have been deprived of me and having thought that everything was over for you, my life was reborn in you and that, full of love and joy, I began to give you my lessons again? Thus, when I deprive you of me, I remain hidden in you to prepare the work I have to give you. My life is reborn again. I too have suffered the pain of death, to give life back to the creatures in the suffering of my death. Death, suffered in the divine order and in order to fulfill the divine will, produces the divine life, so that all creatures may receive this divine life. After suffering so many deaths, I really wanted to die. And how much has my resurrection not brought goods? We can say that with my resurrection, all the goods of my redemption have come back to life, and with her, we're able to reborn all the goods for the creatures, as well as their very life. Therefore, be attentive and let me do it. I was worried about the publication of the writings of the divine will and all the questions they asked me. I thought to myself, only Jesus knows my martyrdom and how tortured I felt when people in authority talked about wanting to publish them. So much so that no one arrived to calm my inner martyrdom and to get me to say Fiat. Only Jesus, by his seductive persuasion, communicating to me the fear of the great evil that I could do if I went even a little out of the divine will, could encourage me to say Fiat. And now, seeing that everything was going so slowly, I remember my inner struggles, my harsh martyrdom because of this publication. What good is so much suffering? Who knows who will see this publication? Perhaps Jesus will please me by letting me see this from heaven. I thought about this and other things and began to pray when I saw in spirit a tree laden with fruits emitting light. And my sweet Jesus was crucified in the middle of this tree. The light of these fruits was so strong that Jesus disappeared into this light. I was surprised and Jesus said to me, "My daughter, this tree you see is the tree of my divine will. As my will is sun, its fruits change into light and form many other suns. I am the center of his life and that is why I am in his midst. Now these fruits that you see are the truths that I manifested on my divine Fiat. They are giving birth to their light within generations. Those who should take care of it and hurry, but do not prevent the fruits of this tree from forming births of light, and the great good of this light. Therefore, you must be consoled with your tortures and martyrdoms. Because between you and me everything is in order and that I would not have tolerated in you even a shadow of opposition to my will. This would have been my greatest sorrow and I could not have said. The little girl of my will gave me her will and I gave her mine. While this exchange of wills is one of my greatest joys, and for you too. If there is fault, it is on the part of those who are negligent. Therefore, don't grieve or worry about the questions they ask you. I myself will be in you to administer to you the necessary light and words. You must know that this is in my interest, more than yours." I kept thinking of the divine Fiat and my sweet Jesus added, "My daughter, between us, in our divinity, a single act is enough to do everything. This act is will, thought, word, work and not. Thus, only one of our acts is a voice that speaks, a hand that acts, a foot that walks. Our single act envelopes everything. So if the creature thinks, works, speaks, and walks, it is the virtue of our unique act that reverberates in every act of the creature, communicates the good of thought, speech, and everything else. This is why we can say that we are the bearer, singular referring to the one and triune God, of all creatures and all their deeds. Oh, how offended we feel when our actions carry a voice, a thought, a work, and a step, which are not only not made for us, but which offend us. Creatures use our very actions to form the weapons that hurt us. Human ingratitude, how great you are! But the one who makes our divine will and lives in it unites with our unique act. His will is united with ours and it flows into our act. With us, it is thought, voice, work and not of all. Our virtue, wears human smallness, makes her the bearer of all the acts of creatures together with us. It uses all our acts and forms weapons. Not to hurt us, but to defend us, love us, and glorify us. Also, we call her our warrior, who defends our rights. After that, I followed the divine will in creation. It seemed to me that I wanted to appropriate everything. The sun, to give it the glory of light and heat. The sea, to give it the glory of this incessant whisper. I would like to have everything in my power to say, you have given me everything and I give you everything. I thought about this and other things when my beloved Jesus manifested himself in me. He said to me, "My daughter, how beautiful is your life in my will, your echo reverberates everywhere. Where my divine will is present, and it is everywhere present, your echo is heard. It thus resonates in the sun, in the sea, in the wind, in the air, and even penetrates heaven where it brings to your Creator his own glory, his own love and his own adoration. And my divine will does not feel alone among the things created. She has the company of the echo of the one who lives in my divine will. And she feels that he is being returned all love and all the glory which it has poured into creation." I was doing my meditation. As today is the beginning of the novena of the child Jesus, I thought of the 9 excesses of his incarnation that Jesus had told me with such tenderness. They are described in the first volume. It was really reluctantly that I reminded my confessor of this. Because when he read them, he told me he wanted to read them in public in our chapel. I was thinking of this when my little child Jesus was seen in my arms, so small, caressing me with his tiny hand, and saying to me, "How beautiful she is, my little girl, how beautiful she is. How much I must thank you for listening to me. And me. My love, what do you say? It is I who must thank you for talking to me and giving me, with so much love, as my master, so many lessons that I did not deserve." And Jesus, "Ah! My daughter, there are so many to whom I would like to speak and who do not listen to me, but silence me in suffocating flames. So we have to congratulate each other. You thank me and I thank you. But why don't you want us to read the 9 excesses? Ah! You don't know how much life, how much love and graces they contain. You must know that my word is creation. As you relate the 9 excesses of my love in the Incarnation, not only did I renew the love I had by incarnating, but I was creating a new love, in order to invest the creatures and conquer them so that they give themselves to me. These 9 excesses of my love, manifested with so much tenderness, love, and simplicity, formed the prelude to the many lessons I was about to give you on my divine Fiat, in order to form his kingdom. And now, with their rereading, my love is renewed and redoubled. Do you not want, then, that my love, redoubled, spread and invest other hearts so that, as a prelude, they can arrange themselves for the lessons of my will, make it known and reign? And me, my dear little child, I believe that many have spoken of your incarnation. And Jesus, yes, yes, they have spoken. But these were words taken from the shore of my love, and who therefore possessed neither tenderness nor fullness of life. But these few words that I told you, I have pronounced them from within the life of the fountain of my love, and they contain life, an irresistible force, and such tenderness, that only the dead will not feel moved to the point of pity for me, every little child, who endured so much suffering even from the womb of my heavenly mother. After which the confessor read in the chapel the first excess of Jesus' love in the Incarnation. My sweet Jesus was manifesting himself in me. He stretched out his ear to hear. And drawing me to him, he said to me, "My daughter, how happy I am to hear them. But my happiness increases by keeping you in this house of my will where 2 of us listen. Me, what I told you. And you, what you heard from me. My love increases, ends and overflows. Listen, listen. How beautiful it is. The word contains the breath, and when it is spoken, the word carries the breath which, like air, goes from mouth to mouth and communicates the power of my creative word. And the new creation contained in my word descends into hearts. Listen, my daughter, in the redemption. I had the procession of my apostles. I was in the midst of them, all love, in order to instruct them. I spared no effort to form the foundation of my church. Now, in this house, I feel the procession of the first children of my will. I feel my scenes of love repeating themselves when I see you among them, all love. Who wants to communicate to them the lessons of my divine Fiat? In order to form the foundations of the kingdom of my divine will. If you knew how happy I am to see you talking about my divine will. I look forward to the moment when you will begin to speak. To listen to you and to feel the happiness that my divine will brings me. The Christmas novena continues. Continuing to listen to the 9 excesses of the Incarnation, my beloved Jesus drew me to him to show me how every excess of his love was a sea without limits. And in this sea rose gigantic waves in which one could see all the souls devoured by these flames. Fish swim in the waters of the sea. The waters of the sea form the life of fish, the guide, defense, food, the bed and the palate of these fish, so that if they come out of this sea, they can say, our life is over, because we have come out of our inheritance, the homeland that our Creator has given us. In the same way, these gigantic waves of flames, who rose from these seas of fire, devouring creatures, wanted to be life, the guide, defense, food, the bed, the palace and the homeland of creatures. But coming out of this sea of love, suddenly, they die. And the little child Jesus weeps, groans, prays, cries out and sighs. For he wants no one to come out of his devouring flames. And he doesn't want to see anyone die. Oh! If the sea had reason, more than a tender mother she would cry over her fish torn from her sea. Because she feels a life that she possessed and preserved with so much love being torn from her. And with its waves, it would throw itself on those who dared to take away from it so many of these lives that it possesses and that form its wealth and glory. And if this sea does not weep, Jesus said, I weep when I see that while my love has devoured all creatures, with ingratitude, they do not want to live in my sea of love, but by freeing themselves from its flames, they are exiled from my fatherland and they lose their palate, their guide, their defense, their food, their bed, and even their lives. How could I not cry? They came out of me. They were created by me, and they were devoured by the flames of love that I had when I incarnated for the love of all creatures. When I hear the 9 excesses that are told to me, the sea of my love rises. It is bubbling and forming huge waves. She roars so much that she would like to deafen them all, so that they cannot hear anything, except my moans of love, my cries of sadness, my repeated sobs that tell him, stop making me cry and exchange the kiss of peace. Let us love each other, and all of us will be happy, the Creator and the creature. Jesus kept silent, and at that moment I saw the heavens open and a ray of light that came from above fixed himself on me and enlightened all those around us. And my ever amiable Jesus began to speak again. Daughter of my will, this ray of sunshine that has settled on you is my divine will that brings the life of heaven into your soul. How beautiful is this ray of sunshine that not only enlightens you and brings you his life, but make the life of light feel to anyone who approaches and stays close to you. Because, like the sun, it spreads around and he gives those around you the warm kiss of light of his breath, of his life. And I am happy to see in you that my divine will is spreading and beginning to make its way. See, the seas of my love are nothing but my will at work. When my will wants to act, the seas of my love rise, bubble, form their gigantic waves. Who cry, groan, scream, pray and deafen. On the other hand, when my Fiat does not want to act, the sea of my love is calm. She whispers only softly. His course of joy and happiness that are inseparable from him is continuous. Therefore, you cannot understand the joy I feel, the happiness that is mine, and the interest I take in illuminating and offering my word, my very heart, to the one who works to make known my divine will. My interest is so great that I wrap it in myself, and I spread myself outside of him. I speak and speak myself of my will at work in my love. Do you believe it is your confessor who speaks on the nights when he speaks in public about the 9 excesses of my love? I am the one who takes his heart in my hands and makes him speak. But while he said Selah, the blessing was given. Jesus added, Daughter, I bless you. Everything is happiness for me when I have to act on someone who possesses my divine will. Because, if I bless you, my blessing finds the space where to place the goods and the effects contained in my blessing. If I love you, my love finds in my Fiat the space to place itself and fulfill its life of love. Consequently, everything I do about you, in you, and with you is a happiness I feel. Because I know that a divine will has room for whatever I want to give him, and has the virtue of multiplying the goods I give you. Because she is the one who does everything, she strives to form so many lives, that there are acts that we perform with the creature in whom it reigns. After which I made my round in the divine Fiat. I was once again going to the early days of creation, to join in the acts performed by our father Adam in the state of innocence, in order to unite with him and continue from there. And my beloved Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, My daughter, by creating man, I gave him a visible universe in which he had to move freely and see the works of his Creator, created with so much order and harmony, out of love for him. And, in this void, to perform his works too. And just like I gave a visible void, I also gave an invisible void, even more beautiful, for his soul, where man was to form his holy works, his suns, his heavens, his stars. And echoing his Creator, he had to fill this void with all his works. But since man has come out of my will to live in his, he has lost the echo of his Creator and model to be able to imitate our works. Therefore, we can say that in this vacuum, there is nothing but man's first steps, everything else is empty. However, it must be completed. That is why I await with so much love those who live and must live in my will, and who, feeling the power of our echo and who having our models present in them, will hasten to fill that invisible void that I have given with so much love in creation. But do you know what this void is? This is our will. Just as I gave man's nature a sky and a sun, I gave the sky and sun of my Fiat to his soul. And when I see you walking in the footsteps of innocent Adam, I say, finally, this is the emptiness of my divine will that begins to receive the first conquests and the first works of the creature. Therefore, be attentive and continue your flight in my divine will. I thought of the birth of the child Jesus and prayed to him to be born into my poor little soul. To sing his praises and form a procession in the acts of his birth, I merged into the divine will, and passing through all the things created, I wanted to animate the heavens, the sun, the stars, the earth, and everything with my I love you. I wanted to place everything as waiting, in the birth certificate of Jesus, so that everything could tell him, I love you and we want your will on earth. And in doing so, it seemed to me that all created things were focusing their attention on Jesus' birth certificate. When the dear child came out of the womb of his heavenly mother, the heavens, the sun, and even the little bird cried out in chorus, I love you and we want the kingdom of your will on earth. My I love you in the divine will spread in everything in which the divine will had its life. Therefore everything sang the praises of the birth of its Creator. I saw the newborn child who, throwing himself into my arms trembling, he said to me. What a magnificent feast the little girl of my will has prepared for me! How beautiful is the chorus of all created things that says to me I love you and wants the reign of my will. The one who lives in me can give me everything and use all the stratagems to make me happy and make me smile, even in the midst of tears. That's why I was waiting for you. In order to have from you a surprise of love by virtue of my divine will. In fact, you need to know that my life on earth was only suffering, work and preparation of all that was to serve the kingdom of my divine will, which must be a kingdom of happiness and possession. Therefore, it is then that my works will give all their fruit and will change for me and for the creatures in sweetness, joy, and possession. Saying this, he disappeared in my sight. But he soon returned to a small cradle of gold, dressed in a small garment of light. He added, "My daughter, today is my birthday and I have come to make you happy by my presence. It would be too difficult for me, on this day, not to make happy the one who lives in my divine will. Not to give you my first kiss and to tell you and I love you, as if in response to yours. It would be too difficult for me, by hugging you very hard against my little heart, not to make you feel my beatings that emit fire and would like to burn everything that does not belong to my will. Especially since your heartbeat echoes mine and repeats for me this pleasant refrain, may your will reign on earth as in heaven. Repeat it often if you want to make me happy and calm the crying child. See, your love has prepared for me the golden cradle, and the axe in my divine will have prepared for me the little garment of light. Aren't you happy?" After which I continued my actions in the divine Fiat. I was returning to Eden, in the first acts of man's creation. My sweet Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter, Adam was the first human son clothed with our will. His actions were more than rays of sunshine which, by extending and by spreading, were to clothe the whole human family in which they were to be numerous. To throb in these rays, all at the center of this first human sun. And all were to have the virtue of forming their own sun without going beyond the limits of the first sun. In fact, as everyone's life had to originate from this sun, everyone had to be able to be a son on his own. How beautiful was the creation of man! Oh! How much it surpassed that of the entire universe! The bond, the union of one in the multitude was the greatest prodigy of our omnipotence. While our will, one in itself, had to maintain the inseparability of all. The communicative and unifying life of all creatures, symbol and image of our divinity, as we inseparable. Although we are three divine persons, we are still one. Because one is the will, one holiness, one our power. That is why we always see man as if there were only one. Even if it were to have its very long generation, but still centralized in one. It was uncreated love that was infused by us into the created man. Therefore he had to give of us and be like us. And our will, which alone acts in us, was to act alone in man in order to form the unity of all and the bond of inseparability of each. That is why, by withdrawing from our divine Fiat, man has become distorted and disordered, he has ceased to feel the strength of unity and inseparability. Whether with his Creator or with all generations. He felt as a divided body, broken in its limbs, and who no longer possesses all the strength of his whole body. That's why my divine will wants to enter again as a first act into the creature, in order to reunite the broken limbs and to restore to man the unity and inseparability as it had emerged from our creative hands. We find ourselves in the situation of a craftsman who made this magnificent statue, which astonishes heaven and earth. The craftsman loves his statue so much that he has put his very life in it. Thus, with each of his acts and movements, the craftsman feels in him life. The act, the movement of his beautiful statue. The craftsman loves it to the point of delirium and cannot help but contemplate it. But in all this love, the statue makes a meeting, collides and remains broken in its limbs and its vital part that kept it reunited and united with the craftsman. What will not be his sorrow? And what won't he do to reconstruct his beautiful statue? More than that. Given that he still loves her and that to this delusional love has been added a suffering love. This is the condition of the divinity in relation to man. He is our delirium of love and sorrow. We want to remake the beautiful statue of man. And the clash took place in the vital part of our will that he possessed. When our will is restored in him, the beautiful statue will be reconstituted for us, and our love will be satisfied. Therefore, I want nothing more from you but the life of my divine will in you. Then he added in a more tender tone, my daughter. In created things, the divinity did not create love, but flowering. Its light, its power, its beauty, etc. Also, we can say that by creating the heavens, the stars, the sun, the wind, the sea, and the earth, it was our works that we produced, and the blooms of our wonderful qualities. C'est seulement pour l'homme qui utse trace grand prodige de créer. La vie. Et la vie de notre amour lui-même. C'est pourquoi il est dit qu'il fut créé en notre image et en notre ressemblance. Et c'est pourquoi nous l'aimons tant. Parce que c'est un vie et un over qui est sorti de nous. And life is more expensive than anything. I followed the divine Fiat in creation to accompany his deeds. My sweet Jesus manifested himself in me and he said to me, my daughter, look how beautiful she is, my creation. What order, what harmony it contains. And as beautiful as it is, the heavens, the stars, the sun, all are mute, they do not have the virtue of saying even a single word. On the other hand, the heavens, the stars, the sun, the prevailing wind of my divine will all have a voice. They speak so eloquently that no one equals them. The angels, the saints, the scholars remain silent and feel ignorant before the words of the heavens of my will. But why do these heavens and suns speak? Because they contain life. But do you know what these talking heavens and suns are? They are the knowledge I have shown you about my divine will. My will is not only life. It is the fountain, the source and life of all life. Therefore, the heavens of this knowledge could not be mute. Thus, every knowledge about my divine Fiat is a sky, a sun, a wind, all distinct from each other and which, having the virtue of speech and possessing the divine life, have the virtue of producing new and more beautiful skies and suns, stronger, cleaner winds, to invest hearts and conquer them with their sweet moans. You see then, my daughter, how much my love surpassed the love I had in creation, when I manifested to you this many knowledges about my divine will. In fact, in creation, a single sky, a sun, etc., was enough for our love. Because we wanted to better deploy all the ardor of our love on the man who speaks, and for the man who speaks. We wanted to create talking heavens and suns in the depth of his soul. But by withdrawing from our divine will, he placed a limit on our love. And the heavens that speak had no life in him. But our love didn't say enough at most, he stopped and waited. But unable to contain himself any longer, he has resumed his creation of the heavens and suns that speak in the little girl of my divine will. Look at them in the depths of your soul. All my knowledge about my Fiat, all in order and harmony. One is heaven, it speaks, and forms another sky. Another is sun, she speaks, and by making herself light and heat, forms another sun. Another is sea and forms its waves that speak. Speaking, it forms another sea. To cover the whole world with its talking waves. To impose himself by his creative word and to be heard. In order to bring to all the new sea of peace and joy of my will. Another is wind, and sometimes she speaks with her empire in order to break the hardest hearts, sometimes with her caresses so as not to scare, and Sometimes she speaks with moans of love in order to be loved. As she speaks, she forms other winds. His word runs to make known life, the power of my divine will. In short, all my knowledge of my divine will is a new creation. More beautiful, more varied than creation itself. Much more beautiful because it is a creation that speaks. His word is the life of my divine will that it brings to the creature. Therefore, I am happy in your soul. Because I am in the middle of my talking heavens, stars, and suns. But my happiness is redoubled when you make the sacrifice of writing, because I see that these heavens that speak will come out, and that their word will form new heavens that will bring the life of my divine Fiat among creatures. It is then that heaven will no longer be foreign to earth. Because these talking heavens will form the new heavenly family on earth. Their word will bring the Creator and the creature into communication. The winds of this knowledge will bring together the secret joys of the Most Holy Trinity. The creature will be the owner of divine holiness and happiness. All evil will disappear. I will have the joy of seeing the happy creature. Just as it was when we came out of our creative hands. I was thinking about what I could give to the little child Jesus as a gift on the first day of the year. Wouldn't it be nice to give him back my will? As a stool for his little feet, or as a toy for his little hands? I was thinking about this when my little Jesus manifested himself in me. He told me, "My daughter, your will already belongs to me. You are already no longer master of it after giving it to me so often. And I use it. Sometimes as a stool. Sometimes as a toy in my hands, or I keep it in my heart. As the most beautiful of conquests and a secret joy that softens my many sorrows. Do you want to know what I would like to receive as a gift on this day? All the acts you have performed in my will during this year. These acts will be like so many suns that you will have around me. How happy I will be to see that the little girl of my divine will has given me the gift of the many sons of her deeds. And I, in return, will give you grace. To double the sons of the acts done in my will. So that you can offer me a more beautiful and richer gift." Then he added, "My daughter, every manifestation I have given you about my divine will is like a page of your life. If you knew how many beautiful things these pages contain. Each of them is a current between heaven and earth. It is one more sun that will shine on all heads. These pages will be the messengers of the heavenly fatherland. These are steps that my divine will takes to get closer to creatures. Therefore, these manifestations, like pages of life, will form an era for future generations, where they will read the kingdom of my Fiat and the many steps he has taken to come among them, and the new rights he has given them to re-enter his kingdom. My manifestations are decrees. It is only when I want to grant this good that I act to manifest knowledge. Therefore, everything I have told you about my divine will constitutes divine capital that I have produced. That is why these pages that will contain the long history of my will be the most beautiful of your life and, intertwined with the history of the world. They will form the most beautiful epic of all the centuries. After which I thought of the sharp pain that the little child Jesus had felt in the circumcision. He was only 8 days old and he was subjecting himself to such a painful cut. Jesus was manifesting himself in me and he said to me, "My daughter, Adam, in the first epoch of his life, sinning caused his soul a wound from which the divine will came out. In its place, darkness, miseries, and weaknesses have entered, which formed the woodworm of all the goods of man. Thus, if he possesses any property outside of my divine will, whatever these goods are, they are eaten by worms, wormed, without substance, and therefore without strength and without value. And I, who love him so much, in the first days of my life here on earth, I wanted submit to circumcision. Suffer a very cruel cut, to the point of tearing me up. And by this injury, I opened the door to the human will to let it enter mine again, so that my wound may heal that of the human will end. Encasing the man again in my divine Fiat, which would rid him of the worm, miseries, weaknesses, and darkness. Under my omnipotent Fiat, all its belongings would be redone and restored. Daughter. From the moment of my conception and from the first days of my birth, I thought to the kingdom of my divine will and how to bring him to safety among creatures. My sighs, my tears, my repeated sobs sought only to restore the kingdom of my Fiat to earth. In fact, I knew that no matter what goods I could give him, man would never be happy, that he would never possess the fullness of the goods of holiness, nor the insignia of his creation which constitutes him king and master. He is still the servant man, weak and miserable. But with my will and making it reign in him, I would give man, in one fell swoop, all property, its royal palace and his lost reign. About 20 centuries have passed and I have not stopped. My sighs still last. I have shown you so much knowledge about my divine will. They are nothing but the words of my tears and the indelible characters of my sufferings and moans. Transformed into words, they manifest themselves to you. To have you written on paper, in the most tender and convincing way, what concerns my divine will, and how much she wants to reign on earth as she reigns in heaven. Therefore, on our part, the Divinity has decided, by indelible and immutable decrees, that our divine will come to reign on earth. No one can move us. As a sign of this, we have dispatched from heaven the army of his acquaintances. If this were not so, it would not be worth endangering the great riches of a divine will. They would continue to remain hidden from men as they have been for many centuries. We are now waiting for the part of the creatures, which are still procrastinating and reluctant to decide. Especially those who wait instead of working to make known the secrets of my divine will and the great benefit of its knowledge. Human will, how ungrateful you are! I am waiting for your decision so that we can exchange the kiss and that I may give you the kingdom that I have prepared for you. And you're still procrastinating? My daughter. Pray and put no obstacle on your part to such a great good which will be the greatest manifestation of our love. I continue in my usual abandonment to the divine Fiat. Following his actions, I saw a crowd of people, all small, malnourished, sickly, skinny and some wounded. There was in this crowd neither childish freshness, nor beauty of young age, nor dignity of the adult man. They looked like a disparate assortment of people without diets, hungry, without enough food. When they ate, they seemed never to be satiated. What pity aroused in me this great crowd that seemed to represent almost the whole world. I didn't know who they were, nor what was the meaning of their nature. Why none of them had reached their normal size. My beloved Jesus manifested himself in me and said to me, "My daughter, what a crowd of unfortunate people! They are nothing but the great crowd of those who have come out of the paternal inheritance, a gift of their heavenly Father. Poor children, without paternal inheritance. They have no land to live in safety. They do not have enough food to feed themselves and are forced to live on rapines and thefts, and food without substance. Therefore, it is almost difficult for them to reach their normal size because their limbs do not have sufficient strength to develop. They were therefore stingy, crippled, hungry and never satisfied. Not everything they take is suitable for their growth because they are not appropriate and established foods for them, nor are they part of their inheritance. My daughter, the inheritance given by my heavenly Father to this crowd of people was my divine will. It was in her that they had to find the food to grow and reach the right size, the balsamic air that had to make them healthy and strong. Imprint on their faces the freshness of the child, the beauty of young age and the dignity of the adult man. No property was missing from this heritage of which man had to be the master and had to have at his disposal all the goods he desired, in his soul and in his body. Thus, by leaving the inheritance of my divine will, man has no longer found these things at his disposal. He was no longer a master, but a servant, and forced to live in poverty. How can it reach its normal size? That's why I wait with so much love. the crowd of those who must live in our legacy of the divine Fiat. It will form for us the most magnificent crowd of people of normal size, full of beauty and freshness, nourished with nourishing foods that will make them strong and well developed. And they will form all the glory of our creative work. Our sadness is great to see this crowd, unhappy and deformed. In our pain we repeat, ah! Our work did not come out of our shapeless creative hands, without beauty or freshness. It was a delight to just watch her. Even more, she delighted us as she was so beautiful. By saying this, our love grows and wants to overflow. He wants to set in motion our divine will to reign among creatures in order to restore, beautiful and graceful, our work, just as it came out of our creative hands. After which I continued to think about the Supreme Fiat. Oh! How many things I understood of him! It seemed to me to see it. All majesty, all light. Pouring out happiness, strength, holiness, and love. These spills formed boundless seas that wanted to pour out on the creatures. But, alas, they did not even think of receiving them. And these seas remained suspended above their heads. My mind was immersed in the divine Fiat. My sweet Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter, wherever the divine will is present, we find the communicative power of divine goods and such as powerful waves, are outpourings of happiness, light, strength, etc., which flow on the creatures that possess it. And it has the virtue of changing the nature of things. The hardest, the most painful and the most bitter. Where my divine Fiat is present, the hardest things become soft. Sufferings turn into joys. The bitterness changes gently. Earth becomes heaven, and sacrifices become conquests. Your example is more than enough to convince you of what I am telling you. Take a look. If my will was not present in you, bedridden as you have been for so many years, without enjoying the sun, the air, or the pleasures of the earth, you can even say that you do not know them. You would have been the most unhappy of creatures. Oh! How hard and bitter your condition would have been. My divine Fiat has the source of happiness. It poured over you to flow even into the marrow of your bones. He communicates to you his happiness and, with his strength, put all the evils into you. And he makes you happy. And if you knew how happy I am to know you are happy. Plus, I see you happy. Not because you are in a state of pleasure or amusement, but because you are confined to bed. It delights me, makes me tremble with love and attracts me so much to you. In my delirium of love, I say, oh! Prodigy of my divine Fiat that makes my daughter happy in a state that the world would have called unhappy, unfortunate, and perhaps never seen or understood before. Yet, with my divine will, she is the happiest of creatures. It is the most peaceful. She is mistress of herself. Because in it flows the vein of happiness of my Fiat who knows how to convert everything into endless joys and happiness. My daughter, seeing the happy creature is my only satisfaction. What makes her unhappy is the human will. Immediately removed, all misfortunes disappear and even have no reason to exist. But only my will causes all human misfortune to die. In front of her, all evils fade away. My will is like the morning sun rising and has the virtue of dispelling the darkness of the night. In front of the light, darkness dies and no longer has any right to exist. This is so with my divine will. I continued my round in the acts of the divine Fiat. I reached the point where I accompanied the prophets. When the divine will manifested to them. When and how the future Redeemer will come and when the prophets languished after him with tears, prayers, and penances. I made all their deeds my own, because all this was the fruit of the divine eternal Fiat. I offered them to ask for his kingdom on earth. I was doing this when my sweet Jesus was manifesting in me and he said to me, "My daughter, when a benefit is universal and must and can bring good to all, it is necessary that whole peoples, and if not all, at least a large part, know the good they must receive, and that by prayers, sighs, desires and works they ask for such a great good, so that the good they want is conceived in their minds, in their sighs, in their desires and in their works, and even in their hearts. It is then that the good they so ardently expected is granted to them. When a blessing that is to be received is universal, it takes the strength of a people to ask for it. On the other hand, when it is individual or local, only one may be enough to obtain it. Therefore, before coming to earth and being conceived in the Sovereign Queen of Heaven, I can say that I was conceived in the spirit of the prophets. I confirmed and valued this kind of conception in them through my manifestations about time and how I had to come to earth to redeem humanity. And the prophets, faithful executors of my manifestations, served as heralds, by demonstrating to the peoples, by their words, what I had manifested concerning my coming to earth. And by conceiving myself in the lyrics, they made the news run from mouth to mouth that the word wanted to come to earth. Thus, I was designed, not only in the word of the prophets, but also in the word of the people, so that all talked about it, prayed and eagerly awaited the future Redeemer. And when the news of my coming to earth was spread among the peoples, it is almost an entire people who, with the prophets at its head, prayed and waited in tears and penance. And only then, being as conceived in their wills, I allowed the Queen to come to life, she in whom I had to be conceived in reality in order to make my entry into a people who had languished after me and had desired me for 40 centuries. What a crime would the prophets not have committed if they had hidden and kept to themselves my manifestations about my coming? They would have prevented my conception in the minds, prayers, words, and works of the people, a necessary condition for God to concede a universal good, my coming to earth. Now, my daughter, the kingdom of redemption and the kingdom of my divine Fiat hold hands. The latter is also a universal good, and if they want to, everyone can enter it. It is therefore necessary that many know the news and that this kingdom be conceived in the minds, words, works and hearts of many, so that, by prayers, by desires and by a holy life, they may be prepared to receive the kingdom of my divine will among them. If the news is not disclosed, my protests will not act like heralds. Knowledge about my divine Fiat will not be able to run from mouth to mouth, nor form its conception in the spirit, prayers, sighs and desires of creatures. My divine will not make its triumphant entry by coming to reign on earth. How much it is necessary that the knowledge about my Fiat be known. Not only that, but let it be made known that my divine will already wants to come among the creatures to reign on earth as it reigns in heaven. And it is up to the priests, like new prophets, to do the job. By speech, by the writings and by the works, to serve as heralds to make known what concerns my divine Fiat. If these priests did not work as hard as they can with regard to my divine will, their crime would be no less than those of the prophets who hid my redemption. They would be the cause of such a great good being neither known nor received by creatures. And to suffocate the kingdom of my divine will, leaving in suspense a good so great that there is no such thing, is it perhaps a crime? Therefore, I recommend, for your part, do not omit anything, and praise for those who must strive to make such a great good known. Then he added in a more tender tone, my daughter, that is why I allowed the need for the coming of a priest, so that you may deposit in them, as a sacred deposit, all the truths I have said about my divine Fiat, and so that they may be the attentive and faithful executors of what I want. That is, let them make known the kingdom of my divine will. Be sure that I would not have allowed them to come except for the purpose of fulfilling my great purpose for the destiny of the human family. And just like in the kingdom of redemption, I have left my mother queen in the midst of the apostles so that, with her, helped and guided by her, they may give the departure from the kingdom of redemption. For the sovereign Queen of Heaven knew more than all the apostles, and She was the most interested. It can be said that she kept the kingdom formed in her maternal heart. Consequently, she could very well instruct the apostles in doubts, manner, and circumstances. She was in their midst the true Son, and only one of his words was enough to make my apostles feel strong, enlightened, and strengthened. In the same way, for the kingdom of my divine Fiat, having made in you the deposit, I still keep you in exile, that the priests may draw from you, as from a new mother, what can serve as a light, a guide, a helper, to begin to make known the kingdom of my divine will. And when I see their lack of interest, if you knew how much I suffer from it. Therefore, pray, pray. My abandonment in the divine Fiat continues. By following his deeds throughout creation, I wanted to give my Creator the glory that every created thing contains. In fact, everything created is glorious, noble, holy, of divine origin, because it is formed in the Fiat Creator. However, each thing has a property, one of which is distinct from the other, so that each of them gives its own glory to the one who created it. And as my poor and little intelligence wandered among creation, my sweet Jesus manifested himself in me and said to me, "My daughter, everything created has its special function, following the way God created it. All of them are faithful to me in the function that each possesses. They continually give me glory, each in its own way. Creation is my divine army, united and inseparable. The things created are distinct. Each one runs without ever stopping for the sole purpose of glorifying its Creator. It's like an army. One acts as a general, the other captain, the other of officer, and others are simple soldiers. All are determined to serve the king. Everyone is in their place, in perfect order. All are faithful in the performance of their duties. Everything created has an act of my divine will. Everything is maintained in its place in perfect order, always beautiful and always new, and in the act of glorifying the one who created it. Wherever my divine will is present, there is eternal life, harmony, order, unwavering firmness, so that no event can make them change places. All are happy in the function of each. It would have been so for man if the human will had not delighted him with my will. A magnificent army, well ordered. Each one being happy in his function and always in the act of glorifying me. By glorifying his Creator, man would glorify himself. That's why I want my divine Fiat to regain its reign among creatures. Because I want my army well ordered, noble, holy, and bearing the imprint of the glory of his Creator. My poor and little spirit is bathed in the very bitter sorrow of the deprivation of my sweet Jesus. I felt almost lost without him, and I longed more than ever after my heavenly homeland. Oh, how bitter the earth is without Jesus! It's more bearable with him, but without him you can't live at all. What if, next to the sea of his deprivation, did not extend even more widely the sea of the divine Fiat, which, with its light, partly softens the bitterness and intensity of the suffering of Jesus' deprivation? Who knows if I wouldn't have flown long ago to the celestial regions, because of the intensity of the pain. But, Fiat, Fiat. So I continued my round in creation and in redemption. I put in mind all the acts performed by God, in order to follow them and to give, for each act, tributes, adoration, love, and gratitude. And my sweet Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter," recalling the acts of creation and redemption in order to follow them, to honor them, and to know them. The creature only recognizes the divine reign in everything. My divine will, feeling that it receives the honors and tributes due to it, is attracted and forms her kingdom among creatures. After which I felt like I couldn't continue without Jesus. The forces abandoned me. I was so discouraged that if one had seen my inner sufferings, I would have made heaven and earth cry with pity. But I believe that, just as the divine Fiat eclipses my sweet Jesus from my sight by his light, It also overshadows my sufferings, so that no one knows anything about my harsh martyrdom. It is a secret between me, Jesus and the divine will. As for the others, no one knows anything. Seeing me in the reign of the Fiat light, they believe me to be the happiest of creatures. Oh! Power of the divine will! You know how to change things. Where you are, you make everything seem to be beautiful and good. Better yet, with your light, you embellish the sufferings and make them appear as rare as precious pearls that contain in them seas of joy and happiness. How ingenious you are, O divine will! Under your empire of light, we can only remain silent, love you and follow you. But as my little spirit wandered in its light and in the terrible nightmare of Jesus' deprivation, I barely felt it manifest in me, and he said to me, "My daughter, courage, don't let you down. The whole of heaven has its eyes fixed on you, and by the irresistible strength of my Fiat, everyone identifies so much with you, that they can't help it. To look at you, to love you and to participate in all your actions. You must know that the angels, the saints, the sovereign queen, are one. Their beings are nothing but a single act of divine will. Therefore, nothing else appears in them but the divine will. The thought, the word, the look, the work, the step, nothing appears except the Fiat. Fiat. And this constitutes the fullness of the happiness of all the saints. Now she who acts and lives in my will is like the inhabitants of heaven, that is. It is all of a room and it forms a single whole with them. In such a way that if the soul on pilgrimage thinks, the saints all together think with it. If she loves, if she acts, they love and act with her. The bonds are so close between her and heaven that they all together form a single act of my will. So much so that all the inhabitants of heaven are on the lookout to see what the creature will do on earth, so that nothing escapes them. Where my divine will reigns, she has her heaven, and it possesses the virtue of kidnapping heaven on earth and earth in heaven, and of forming only one thing. Therefore, courage, do not get tired. Think that it is a divine will that you are dealing with, and this should satisfy you. I was doing my round in creation to follow all the deeds that the divine Fiat has done and that it still does. More. For my poor mind traced all that the divine will had done. In Adam and in all generations, before and after the redemption. It seemed to me that all the acts performed in the divine will, in creation, and in creatures were more than sons that I had to follow, embrace, and appropriate. And even in doing this, my poor heart could not avoid feeling the tortures of the deprivation of my greatest good, Jesus. And he was manifesting himself in me, and he said to me, "My daughter, courage. In the one who lives in my divine will and follows her deeds, my Fiat continues her creation. In each of the acts she follows, he assumes the attitude of forming his creations. Only when he sees all his living deeds well aligned and ordered in the creature, as a new creation, and consequently a new sky, a new sun, a new sea, all more beautiful, a new flowering more surprising. Only then is my divine Fiat satisfied. The act of man's creation was the most beautiful and tender act. He was fulfilled in the most intense ardor of love. And my divine Fiat wants to repeat in the creature that lives in my will the acts performed in the creation of man. And, oh! What a celebration for my Fiat to repeat its actions! For it is only in the one who lives in him that my Fiat can repeat his acts of creation, things he has done, as well as new things. In fact, the soul lends it its soul, which is empty and which my will uses as space to create what it wants. It's a bit like she used the emptiness of the universe to extend the heavens, create the sun, and impose limits on the sea so that the earth can form its magnificent blooms. It is for this reason that by making your rounds in the acts of my Fiat, it is like many waves of light, which cross your mind, and that you feel impregnated in you like multiple scenes. Creation. Man being created. The Queen of Heaven being conceived. The Word that descends. And many other acts performed by my will. This is the power of my Fiat Creator who wants. Always act. Always give, never stop. Therefore, be careful. Because it is a question of something too big. Nothing less than to remain in the act of performing the continual act of my creative will. My creative will feel that it has not finished its work in you. If she does not see all her deeds enclosed in your soul as the attestation and triumph of her reign in you. Therefore, you must turn your full attention to whether all his actions have life in you. And do you know how these acts are created in you? It's when you remember them. That you recognize them and that you love them. My will, pronouncing his Fiat. On your reminder and on your love. Form the life of his deeds in you. And the continuity of his works in you is such that my will does not stop, even when I see you tortured by the pain of my deprivation. Because she has a lot to do and therefore, she continues. And I let her do it. For we give you and I primacy in all things to our will. For the just triumph of his cause, and to give him the domain where to form his kingdom. I made my rounds in the acts of the divine Fiat, but with an oppression that took my life away because of the usual privations of my sweet Jesus. Everything was suffering and unspeakable bitterness. It seemed to me that the divine will, who gave me life and possessed immense seas of light, joy, endless happiness, was crossed for me by clouds of oppression and bitterness. The deprivations of the one whose absence, after having lived and grown with him for so long, form for me the clouds, which make me bitter the happiness and joy of his very divine will. Oh! Lord, what suffering! But as I followed the deeds of the divine Fiat in this state, my beloved Jesus, barely manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter! Courage, do not oppress yourself to this extent. You must know that the soul that lives in my divine will is inseparable. And her end of me. My will is like light, which contains light, warmth, and colors, which, although distinct from each other, are nevertheless inseparable. Light cannot exist or have life without heat. Heat cannot have life without light. And colors are formed by the force of light and heat. One cannot be without the other. One is life. The other is strength. Light, warmth, and colors begin their lives together and continue without ever separating. If they have to die, their lives all end in one fell swoop. Such is the inseparableness of the soul that lives in my divine will. It is inseparable from me and from all the acts of my divine Fiat. It enters the life of the light and warmth of my divine will. It acquires the life of its light and warmth. His incessant act can be called the multiplicity and infinity of his actions. The colors produced by my divine will, the soul forms a unique act with it. You must know that the inseparability of the soul that lives in my divine will is so great, that when eternal wisdom created the heavens, the sun, and the entire universe, you were with me and you flowed into my divine Fiat like light, warmth, and colors. I would have hesitated very much to perform even a single act of my will without my little girl or a soul living in her. It would be as if I lacked the strength of light, warmth, or colors. Of this I cannot miss. Therefore you are inseparable from me. So, courage, and don't oppress yourself." Hearing this, I said to him, "My love, if it is true that in all the acts of your divine will I too was there before the fault, Adam owned your Fiat, and so, when he sinned, I was there too, and that I would regret it." And Jesus added, "My daughter, you must know that in my divine will, there is the permissive act and the desired act. There was in the fall of Adam the permissive act, but not wanted by my will, and in the permissive act, the light, the warmth, and the multiplicity of colors of my divine will stand aside and remain untouchable, without mingling with the human act. On the other hand, in the intended act, they form a single act and only one thing. Is the sunlight tainted because it passes over garbage? Certainly not. Light always remains light, and garbage is always garbage. On the contrary, light triumphs over everything and remains untouchable by anything, no matter if it is trampled or puts on the dirtiest things. Because things alien to light do not enter into his life of light. My divine will is more than light. Like light, it flows into all human acts. But it remains untouchable by all the evils of creatures. Only those who want to be light, warmth and color. That is, those who want to live solely and always by his divine will can enter into it. Anything else does not belong to him. Therefore, you can be sure that you have not entered the fall of Adam. Because his fall was not an act of light, but of darkness. And one flees the other. At the height of bitterness because of the deprivation of my sweet Jesus, I wrote what is said above. Even if it cost me a lot given the state I was in. I still wanted to do it as if to show a last tribute to this Fiat which, with so much love, had manifested itself to me. And now, although his word is so brief, I don't want the smallest drop of light he manifests to be lost. Who knows, I thought to myself, if this is not the last drop of light I put on paper. I was thinking about this when my beloved Jesus came out of me. He threw himself around my neck, hugged me very tightly, and he said to me, "My daughter, as soon as you started writing, I felt so attracted that it was impossible for me to resist it. So much so that when my Fiat overflowed with you, it took me out in order to direct, while you write, what I have shown you concerning my divine will. It is a commitment, a sacred and divine right that he possesses, to be the actor, the reader and the viewer while you write. So that everything can be light and surprising truths. In such a way that the divine characters of my will can be known clearly. Do you think you are the one who writes? No, no, you are nothing but the superficial part. The substance, the first part, the one that dictates, is my divine will. If you could see the tenderness, the love, the burning desires with which my Fiat inscribes his life on these papers, you would die consumed by love. After which he withdrew. And I, coming out of the enchantment of Jesus, I continued to write, but I felt all light. The words came to me in a whisper. I am unable to say how I felt while writing. After I finished writing, I started praying, but with the wound in my heart of not knowing when Jesus would return. I lamented, why doesn't he take me to heaven yet? I remembered all the times he had brought me to the gates of death, as if I was going to walk through the gates of heaven. But as they were about to open to receive me in the blessed abode, obedience had imposed itself. Cf. Volume 4, September 1900 and September 4, 1902, to my poor existence. By closing the doors, she forced me to remain in the hard exile of life. Oh! Although holy, how cruel and almost tyrannical obedience is in certain circumstances. However, I thought to myself, I would like to know if it was out of obedience, or if the end point of my existence here on earth had not yet come. I was thinking about this and many other things that crossed my mind with such unspeakable bitterness that it seemed to intoxicate me. My greatest good, Jesus, my dear life, surprised me. He let himself be seen again and he said to me, "My daughter, you must know that in our divinity there is the ordinary order for all creation. No incident can move it. Not a point, not a minute too early, not a minute too late. Life ends according to what has been established by us. We are immutable in this regard. But there is also in us the extraordinary order. We are masters of the laws of the whole creation. So we have the right to change them whenever we want. But if we change them, it must be for our greatest glory and for the greater good of all creation. We don't change our laws because of small things. Now, my daughter, you know that the greatest work is to establish the kingdom of our divine will on earth, and to make it known. There is no good that the creature can receive if it does not know it. Why should you be surprised, then, that we have yielded to obedience so as not to let you die? Even more, that because of your connection with my divine Fiat, you enter into the extraordinary order. Every knowledge about my divine will represents many divine lives out of our breast. Thus the sacrifice of your life was necessary to receive them. as well as the very deprivation of heaven, from which obedience has been snatched from you. Moreover, my divine will, his knowledge, his reign, are not only the greatest good for the earth, but are the complete glory for the whole of heaven. Thus it was all heaven that prayed to me, cf. Volume 6, February 12, 1904. To yield to the prayers of the one who commanded you. I, having regard to my will. While I opened the doors to you, I yielded to their prayers. Do you think I don't know? Your great sacrifice. Your continual martyrdom of being separated from the heavenly fatherland. Only to fulfill my will in the one through whom my will was commanded to you? In fact, this sacrifice took away the many lives of my Fiat's acquaintances. And then, it took a soul who knows heaven, and know how my divine will is fulfilled in the heavenly abode, so that my will can entrust to him his secrets, his history, his life. By appreciating them, this soul would make it his own life and would be willing to give his life so that others could know such a great good. Jesus remained silent. And I, in suffering, lamented and reproached Jesus for not wanting to take me to heaven. And he, "Courage, my daughter, the writings about my divine will soon be finished. My very silence tells you that I am about to complete the great manifestations of the gospel of the kingdom of the divine will. This is what I did in the kingdom of redemption, in the last days of my life, I didn't add anything. On the contrary, I hid. If I said something, it was a repetition to confirm what I had already announced. For what I had said was sufficient to receive the blessings of the redemption. It was up to them to enjoy it. This will be the case for the kingdom of my divine will. When I have said everything and nothing will be missing to be able to receive the benefit. To know her and to be able to own all his property. Then I would have no interest in keeping you on earth, and it will be up to them to enjoy it. My abandonment in the divine Fiat is continual. As I tried as much as I could to follow the deeds of the divine will, embracing all things and creatures, my sweet Jesus came out of me and said to me, "My daughter, the whole creation, all the saints, are nothing but the effects of my divine will. If my will speaks, it creates and forms the most beautiful works. Every little movement of my will forms bouquets of wonders that it spreads on creatures. Its smallest breaths project varieties of beauties on those who receive them. A beautiful picture of this is that of the sun, which, the simple fact of coating the earth with its touch of light, produces all varieties of colors and flavors of all plants. No one can deny that by simply letting himself be touched by his light, he has received the good it contains. My divine will is more than the sun. It is enough for someone to let himself be touched by it for this miraculous touch to produce in him a good which, by perfumed and warming it with its light, makes him feel his beneficial effects of holiness, light, and love. But the effects of my Fiat are given to those who do my divine will, who love its dispositions, who patiently endure what she wants. In doing so, the creature recognizes that there is a supreme will. Seeing himself recognized, my will does not deny him its admirable effects. On the other hand, the creature who must live in my will must possess in itself the whole life and not just the effects, but life with all the effects of my divine Fiat. There is no holiness, past, present, or future, of which my divine will was not the primary cause, forming all kinds of holiness that exist. My will therefore contains within itself all goods and all the effects of holiness that it has produced. This creature will be able to say, the others have accomplished a part of holiness, while me, I did everything. I have integrated everything into myself. Of all that each saint has accomplished, par consequent, la sainteté des anciens, celle des prophètes, celle des martyrs, sera presenti en elle. La sainteté des pénitents, les grandes saintetés aussi bien que les petites seront visibles. Ilya plus encore. Car la création tout entière sera representée en elle. In fact, my divine will loses nothing by producing his works. On the contrary, when it produces them, my will preserves them in it as the primary source. Therefore, for the creature that lives in it, there is nothing that my will could have done, or will, of which it will not have possession. What enchantment and amazement would it be if a creature could contain within itself the entire sphere of the sun with its light? Who would not say that it contains all the effects, colors, softness, light that the sun has given and will give to all the earth and all plants, large and small? If this were possible, heaven and earth would be astonished. And all would recognize that each of their own effects are contained in this creature that possesses the sphere of the sun, which is its life with all its effects. But humanly this is impossible because the creature is not able to contain either the power of all the sunlight or that of its heat. It would be burned and the sun would not have the virtue of not burning it either. On the other hand, my will has virtue to contain itself in itself, to be smaller, to spread as it wishes. And that's what she does. When it transforms the creature into itself, my will keeps it alive and giving it all its shades of beauty, makes the creature the mistress and dominatrix of all his divine possessions. Therefore, be attentive, my daughter. Recognize in you the great good of the life of my Fiat. By possessing you, he wants to make you the possessor of all that belongs to him. After which, he added, my daughter, the creature who lives in my will never ceases to follow the ways of his Creator and to imitate us. While our essence, our will, our life, our love, and our power are one, we are nevertheless three distinct persons. In the same way, for the soul that lives in my will, his heart is one and in each of his beats, it forms three acts. One embraces God. The second embraces all creatures and the third kisses herself. Thus, when she speaks, when she acts, and in everything she does, she forms these three acts. Echoing the power, wisdom, and love of the one who created it, it embraces all things and creatures. I continued my round in the divine Fiat. Stopping in Eden, I worshipped the supreme will in man's act of creation. I wanted to participate in this union of wills that existed between the Creator and the creature when it was created. And my greatest good, Jesus, was manifested in me. He said to me, my daughter, the creation of man was the most beautiful and solemn act of all creation. In the fullness of the ardor of our creative love, our Fiat created in Adam all the other creatures. He has always remained in the act of creating and renewing in each one what we did for the first man. In fact, all his descendants had to draw their origin from him. Thus, our divine will made a commitment, as creatures were to emerge, to renew our outpouring of love, to manifest all our divine qualities, and to make a new display of beauties, graces, holiness and love on each of them. Each creature was then to be for us the occasion to celebrate a newcomer and the happy event that came to enlarge the celestial family. Oh! As our divine will rejoiced! To place oneself in the act of always having to give to the creature and to renew the magnificence, the sublimity, and the unsurpassable control that it had to have over each creature. But because Adam came out of our divine will, his descendants have lost the way that leads them to the first act of man's creation. And although our divine will is not stopped, because when we decide to perform an act, no one can move us. Therefore our will always remains in the act of renewing the wonders of creation. Despite this, she finds no one on whom to renew them. She waits with divine patience and firmness for the creature to return in her will. Thus it will be able to resume his act, always in action, and repeat what she did in the creation of man. She is waiting for them all. She finds only her little daughter, the newborn of my divine will, who enters every day into the first act of man's creation. There our divine being showed all our divine qualities, to make man the little king and our inseparable son, embellishing him with our divine insignia. Thus all will be able to recognize him as the greatest prodigy of our love. My daughter, if you knew with what love she expects you to make your little daily visit to Eden where our Fiat, in a search of love, has celebrated in order to create man. Oh! How many acts repressed! How many sighs of muffled love! How many joys contained! How many beauties remained enclosed in my divine will! Because no one is present to enter into his creative act, to receive the unheard of goods that he wants to give. Seeing you who, in his most divine will, enter into the act of man's creation, oh! Like her, rejoices and feels attracted as if by a powerful magnet to make herself known to creatures. Thus she will make my divine will reign among them. And they can find the way to reach the first act of man's creation. It must no longer have to be kept, to repress in itself the goods she wants to give to creatures. Oh! If the creatures knew how many new creative acts, each more beautiful than the next, my divine Fiat is about to create and to get out of himself, to spread them on each of them. Oh! How they would hasten to enter into my divine will, to start again in her their life and receive his infinite goods. I then followed the holy divine will and thought, is it really true that I own this holy Fiat? Is it true that I feel unable to want or desire anything else? That the divine will overflows like a sea inside and outside me, and that she completely envelopes me in her divine Fiat? That I have the impression that all the other things do not belong to me. But who knows if I really own it? I was thinking of this when my beloved Jesus added, my daughter, the sign that a soul possesses my will is the feeling that it has control over itself, in such a way that his passions dare not present themselves in front of the light of my Fiat. They feel unable to act, as if they have no life. In fact, the power and holiness of my will overthrows everything. On the very miseries of the human will, it spreads its light, his holiness and the most beautiful flowers, to convert these very miseries into a fruitful and blessed land. This land no longer knows how to produce thorns, but only celestial flowers and ripe and tasty fruits. And the mastery of this happy creature is so great that it feels like a master of God himself, creatures and of all things created. It has a charming virtue, so much so that it, who has the happiness to know her, feels attached to her, to the point of not being able to move away from her. The power of my Fiat in her charms God, who is happy to remain locked in her. And my Fiat charms the creatures because they smell the balsamic smell of my divine Fiat. It brings true peace and good into their hearts. What would they not do to get a single word from you, which, like life, can descend into their hearts? Therefore, be attentive and continue your flight in my divine will. I continue my round in the acts of the divine Fiat. I gathered all creation. I asked in everything that the divine will come to reign on earth. I brought them all together to my Creator to give him the glory of all creation and to say to him, Adorable Majesty, please hear the heavens, the stars, the sun, the wind, the sea, and all creation ask you that your Fiat come and reign on earth. May the will of all be one. I was doing this when my adorable Jesus came out of me and said to me, My daughter, the whole creation forms the heavenly orchestra. Because everything created contains the light and power of my divine Fiat. This produces the most beautiful music. Each thing created is different from another. My divine will, by creating them with his creative word, made them distinct from each other. She placed in them a distinct sound. Thus there are so many notes they form the most beautiful of concerts that no terrestrial music can imitate. The multiplicity of sounds with the corresponding notes is as great as the things created. Thus, the heavens contain a sound. Each star has its own. The sun has another, and so on. These sounds are nothing but participation in the harmony that my divine will. His Fiat has the generative, communicative, and fertilizing virtue, it leaves wherever it is pronounced its wonderful qualities. Light, beauty and incomparable harmony. Isn't it his communicative virtue that communicated so much beauty, order, and harmony to the whole universe? And isn't it by means of his breath That He nourishes all creation. That He preserves it fresh and beautiful, just as He created it. Oh! If the creatures wanted to be nourished by the breath of my omnipotent Fiat, the evils would no longer have any life in them. Its generative and nourishing virtue would communicate light, beauty, and order to them in the most beautiful harmony. What can my Fiat do and donate? All. My daughter. You gathered all the things created, to bring them to us as the most beautiful tribute, to ask us for our reign on earth. As all things have in them the notes and sounds that are unique to them, they immediately began their music, so beautiful and so harmonious. Our divinity listened and said, "The little girl in our Fiat brings us the celestial orchestra." In their music, they tell us, "May the reign of our divine will come to earth." Oh! How pleasant this sound is to us, as he descends deep into our divine bosom and as it incites us to compassion for so many creatures without the life of our Fiat. Ah! One soul living in it can move heaven and earth and to rise to our paternal knees to snatch from us such a great good, which is the Fiat voluntas killed on earth as in heaven. After that, I followed the divine will in the effects so multiple that it produces in all creation. My ever-kind Jesus added, "My daughter, my Fiat produces with a single act many effects that support the whole creation. His act is the life He gives to form every created thing. The effects are the food He administers as so many different foods for each thing in order to keep them fresh and beautiful just as He created them. My divine will is like this: support, the nurturer and the invigorator of all creation. Now the creature who lives in my divine will supports, feeds and vivify avec elle toutes les choses créées lest inseparable de monde Fiat. Lorsque la creature agit en lui, elle acquired el haline. By blowing with my Fiat, she still keeps alive what was once created. Even more, it has virtue to invigorate and to bring back to life the many acts of my will to which the human will has given death. In fact, my will has a continual act to give to creatures. When they did not do my will, those acts died for them. She who lives in my will has the virtue of invigorating them and keeping them alive. I feel in me a strength, a divine power. It continually draws me into the eternal will. It's as if she wants me in the continual company of her actions, to give her little newborn the life of these acts and to have the pleasure of hearing them repeat, or to repeat them with her. It seems that the divine Fiat loves very much and rejoices when he sees the little newborn in his arms of light, either to tell him something about his long history, or to let her repeat with him what he does. The divine Fiat feels much joy and happiness for his work of creation. That is why his light carried my little intelligence to Eden. He carried him into the act where our Creator, in a great movement of love, created the life of love in Adam, in order to always love him. That's what he did. In order to be constantly loved by him in return for an incessant love. He wanted to love her with a love that never says it's enough. But he wanted to be loved in return. My spirit wandered in the love of the Creator and the creature, so my sweet Jesus manifested himself in me and he said to me, "My daughter." In the first act of man's creation, our love overflowed so much and raised its flames so high. His mysterious voices were so loud and penetrating. The heavens, the stars, the sun, the wind, the sea, and all things felt invested by a mysterious voice that proclaimed over man's head, "I love you, I love you, I love you." These enigmatic and powerful voices called man. And he, as if drawn from a sweet sleep and delighted by each of the "I love you" of the one who had created it, also cried out in a surge of love. In the sun, in the heavens, in the sea and in all things. I love you, I love you, I love you, O my Creator. Our divine will that ruled over Adam did not let him lose a single one of our "I love you," to which he responded with his own. It was lovely and even enchanting to hear it. The power of our divine Fiat took the "I love you" of our Son, dear jewel of our heart, on the wings of his light. Invading all of creation, He made us here and each created his continual I love you just like ours. Our divine will only knows how to do things. Continuous, and not broken and uninterrupted. As long as Adam was in possession of his dear inheritance from our Fiat, he possessed his continual deed. It can be said that he was competing with us. Because when we perform an act, it never stops. Therefore, everything was harmony between him and us. Harmony of love, beauty, holiness. Our Fiat did not let him miss any of our things. By withdrawing from our will, he lost the way to our things. Have formed many voids between him and us. Voids of love, beauty, and holiness formed an abyss of distance between God and him. And that's why our Fiat wants return to the creature as a fountain of life in order to fill these voids and make him return, like a little newborn, in his arms, and give him his continuous act just as he created it. I found myself after that without my greatest good, Jesus. I was experiencing such suffering that it is impossible for me to explain it to you. Then, after a long wait, my dear life came back and I told her. Tell me, beloved Jesus, why is the suffering of your deprivation always new? When you hide, I feel a new pain in my soul. A death more cruel, even more heartbreaking than those I have known before when you hide from me. And my ever-kind Jesus said to me, my daughter, you must know that every time I come to you, I communicate to you a new act of my divinity. I communicate to you a new knowledge about my divine will. Sometimes a new beauty. Sometimes a new holiness. And so on for all our divine qualities. This new act that I communicate to you makes that when you dwell without me, this greater knowledge brings about a new pain in the soul. Because the more we know a good, the more we love it. And this new love causes new suffering when one is deprived of it. That is why you feel a new suffering invade your soul when you are without me. But this new suffering prepares you to receive. The emptiness is prepared in you where I can place the new knowledge on my divine will. The pain, the new heartbreaking death from which you suffer because of my deprivation, is the new call that, in a mysterious, secret, and delightful voice, calls me. I'm coming. In return, I manifest to you a new truth that brings you the new life of your Jesus. The knowledge of my divine Fiat is divine lives from the bosom of our divinity. The divine pain you suffer because of my deprivation has virtue to call from heaven these divine lives knowledge of my will to reveal themselves to you, in order to make them reign on earth. Oh! If you knew what value contains a single knowledge about my divine will, all the good it can produce, you would keep it as the most precious of relics, even more than a sacrament. Therefore, let me do it and surrender yourself in my arms, waiting for your Jesus to bring you the divine lives of the knowledge of his Fiat. I was all abandoned in the divine Fiat. I felt my poor mind immersed in the sea of its infinite light. My adorable Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, my daughter, my divine will is in the act of forming continuous births. In these births, it generates and gives birth to light. It generates and gives birth to other lives similar to itself. It generates and gives birth to holiness and beauty. The first generation is formed within our divine bosom. Then come out of us the countless births. But do you know when we form and generate these births? When we want to manifest a truth. First of all, we generate it within ourselves as a dear child. Then we take it out of us as a birth so that it can descend to the creature's end. Give the recipient the freedom to let it generate too. That it can produce more births, and that creatures may thus have our dear child generated within us. Our truths therefore descend from heaven in order to generate in the core's end. Form the long generation of divine births coming from me. So, my daughter, every truth I manifested to you about my divine will was a child generated in our paternal womb. So that when we took her out, she would bring you the child of our light, of our beauty, of our holiness and of our love. And if the grace has been given to you to take them out, It is because they have found in you the space and the freedom to be able to generate in such a way that, unable to contain in you the so many births of the children of our truths, you manifested them to those who had the pleasure of listening to you. Therefore it can be said that he who does not take these truths into consideration is one of our children who does not like and does not like the greatest things that exist in heaven and on earth. Not being loved or esteemed, they come from it. To suffocate these children and to prevent their generation. There is no evil greater than this one, not putting all your care to preserve one of our truths as the greatest of treasures, because it is our child, bearer of our life on earth. What good cannot do one of our truths? It contains the power of our Fiat. It is so vast that it has the power to save an entire world. More. For every truth contains a distinct good to be given to creatures, as well as a glory for the one who generated it. Obstructing to good and glory, that our dear births should give us back, is the greatest of all crimes. That's why I have given you so much grace. I have administered the words to you. I directed your hand when you were writing, that the children of my truths may not be suffocated and as if buried in your soul, and so that you do not forget anything. I have placed myself near you. I have held you in my arms as a tender mother holds her little daughter, and sometimes I attracted you by my promises. Sometimes I corrected you, and sometimes I rebuked you severely when I saw you reluctant to write the truths I had manifested to you. For they were for me lives and children who, otherwise today, would come into the day tomorrow. You cannot imagine my sadness at the neglect of those who have lost the 3 volumes of my divine will. How many truths did they not contain? How many lives have they not suffocated, forming the grave for my children that with so much love I had produced from my paternal womb? As for those who were so negligent as to cause their loss, I have the feeling that they have broken the plan of my divine will, of its long history that I told you with so much love to make it known. Because every time I prepared to tell you about my Fiat, the ardor of my love was so great that I had the feeling to renew the act of the whole creation. Especially when, in the ardor of our love, man was created. Hearing this, I felt my soul pierced and like torn to pieces. I said to him, "My love, if you want, you can do a miracle of your omnipotence so that they will be found. You will not thus have the pain of so many muffled truths and the long history of your broken divine will. I suffer a lot too and I am not even able to explain my grief." Jesus added, "It is the echo of my sorrow that is in you. It is the tearing apart of so many of my lives that have been stifled that you feel within yourself. The truths that have been lost are inscribed in the depth of your soul. For I first wrote them in you with my creative hand before you put them on paper. That's why you feel their heartbreak so keenly. It's the same heartbreak you feel in your heart. If you knew how much I suffer in every truth of these volumes that have been lost with so much negligence. I feel put to death. And as many deaths as there were truths in them. And not only that, but the death of all the good that these truths were to bring. And the death of the glory they were to give me. But they will have to pay for it, with all the more fire in purgatory as there were truths whose loss they caused. Know, however, that if they don't do everything they can to find them because I want their cooperation, I will not do the miracle that some would like them to be found, and this, as punishment for their negligence. These births, these truths, these dear children and these dear lives that we have produced will not, however, be withdrawn. For what comes out of the bosom of our divinity as the bearer of great good for creatures, we do not remove because of ingratitude and negligence of those who have lost so many of our truths. Therefore, when the kingdom of our will be known and will reign over the earth, I will make sure to demonstrate again what has been lost. Because if I didn't, it would be missing the link and connection, and the entire plan of the kingdom of the divine Fiat. Hearing this, I said to him, crying, So, my love, in this case, I will have to wait. That my exile on earth will be long. Yet your privations are for me such torture that I cannot be far from the heavenly homeland any longer. And Jesus added, Girl, don't grieve. Nor is it necessary for me to say, to you or to others, how and to whom I must manifest it if they do not find what has been lost. As far as you are concerned, do what you have to do for the kingdom of my divine will. When you have performed the last act that we expect of you for the fulfillment of our divine will, your Jesus will not waste a minute to take you in his arms to the heavenly regions. Isn't that what I did in the kingdom of redemption? I have accomplished everything without omitting anything so that nothing is missing from me and that all may receive the good of the redemption. And after accomplishing everything, I ascended to heaven without waiting for the result, leaving this task to the apostles. It will be the same with you. Therefore, be attentive and pick up your courage. My poor mind seemed fixed in the divine will and I thought, how can his kingdom ever come to earth? And moreover, how can it come if it is not known? I was thinking this when my ever-kind Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, My daughter, in my works, I use human resources. I am the first part, the foundation, and all the substance of the work I want to accomplish. Then I use the creatures so that my work is known and comes to life among the creatures. This is what I did in the redemption. I used the apostles to make it known, spread it and receive and give the fruits of the redemption. If the apostles had not meant anything about what I had said and done when I came to earth, if, locked in their silence, they had not made the slightest sacrifice, nor offered their lives to make known the great good of my coming to earth, they would have caused the death of my redemption from its birth. And the generations would have stayed without the gospel, without the sacraments and without all the good that my redemption has done and will do again. This was my goal when in the last years of my life here on earth I gathered my disciples around me, to make them the proclaimers of what I had done and said. Oh! If the apostles had remained silent, they would have been responsible of the death of good souls who would not have known the good of the redemption. Responsible for so much good that the creatures would not have done. But because that they have not remained silent and that they offered their lives, we can call them, after me, authors and cause a large number of souls who are saved and of all the good that has been done in my church, by forming, as the first proclaimers, its unshakable pillars. It is our usual divine way that to perform our first act in our works, to place what is necessary, and to entrust them then to the creatures by giving them the necessary graces, so that they can continue what we have done. And our works therefore become known according to interest and goodwill that creatures can have. It will be so with the kingdom of my divine will. I have called you so that you may be a second mother to me. One by one, as I did with my mother in the kingdom of redemption, I have manifested you the many secrets of my divine Fiat, its great benefits, and how much he wants to come and reign on earth. I can say that I did everything. If I called my ministers so that you could open up to him to make him known, my intention was that he would be interested in making such a great good known. And if this interest were absent on the part of those who should strive for it, the kingdom of my will would run the risk of dying from birth and they themselves would be responsible for all the good that such a holy kingdom can bring. Or they deserve that by putting them aside, I call other proclaimers and propagators of the knowledge of my divine Fiat. As long as I can't find some who will have at heart to make his knowledge known more than if it were their very life, the kingdom of my will can have neither beginning nor life on earth. After which I continued my abandonment in the divine Fiat, and my great good. Jesus added, My daughter, in creation, it is my divine will that had its radius of action. And although our divinity is concomitant for we are inseparable from it, the first act, the first action was all of our will. She spoke and she operated. She spoke and ordered. We were spectators of what our supreme will was doing. with a master's degree. A harmony and such a large order, that we feel worthy, glorified and made doubly happy by our very will. Therefore, since creation is His work, all the strength of creation and all the goods it has enriched are all in my supreme will. It is the first life of everything. That's why she loves creation so much. For she feels her life even in all the things created. It is her very life that flows in them. By creating the man, she wanted to make a bigger display. Its power, his love and his mastery. She wanted to enclose in him all the art of creation as a whole. Even more, she wanted to surpass him by giving him brush strokes of a divine art. To make him a little God. And by placing me in him and around him, to his right and to his left, over his head and under his feet, I carried it in my divine will, as an outpouring of our love, as the triumphant and admirer of his unsurpassable mastery. It was therefore the right of my divine Fiat. That man lives everywhere and always in the divine will. What hadn't she done for him? She had called him out of thin air. She had trained him. She had given him her being and she had given him a double life, the life of man and that of my divine will. In order to always hold him tight in his creative arms. To preserve it beautiful, new, and happy just as she had created it. Also, when man had sinned, my Fiat had the feeling that this life that he carried within it was being taken away from him. What was not his pain? He remained within him the emptiness of this man he had yet with so much of love, makes a place in his very life, in order to keep him happy and safe. And do you believe that in the redemption it was not my divine will itself that was incarnated to come and seek the lost man? It was her, because verbum means word. And our word is Fiat. As in creation, she spoke and created. In the redemption, she wanted to incarnate herself. For it was her empty breast that claimed this child who, in such a cruel way, had torn himself from the outside. And what has my will not done in the redemption? But she's still not happy with what I've done. She wants to fill her breast, she doesn't want to see the man disfigured anymore. By sin. By its dissimilarity with it. She wants to see it adorned with the insignia of creation. Adorned with its beauty and holiness, and resume its place in its divine bosom. The Fiat voluntas tua on earth as in heaven is precisely that man returns in my divine will. Only when she sees her happy child again, living in her home, with the opulence of her possessions will she calm down. And only then will she be able to say, my child has returned. He has put on his king's clothes. He wears the royal crown. He lives with me and I gave him back the rights I had given him by creating it. The mess in creation has come to an end. For man has returned to my divine will. My surrender into the divine will continues. I felt the smallness of my poor soul in the midst of all the things created. Although having my own movement, my race continues throughout creation. I feel inseparable from it. My will and that of creation are one, which is the one and only divine will. Therefore, as the will of all is one, we do the unique and the same thing, and we all run as if to our first center, our Creator, to tell Him, your love has created us. It is this same love that reminds us of you, in a vertiginous race. To tell you, we love you, we love you. To sing the praises of your unquenchable and interminable love. Thus, leaving again from its center to continue our race which has no stops. We are only entering and leaving His divine womb. To form our round of love, our love race to our Creator. And as I ran with the whole creation to form my race of love to the divine majesty, my ever-kind Jesus, manifesting Himself out of me, said to me, my daughter, the one who lives in my will is linked to all creation. Creation cannot be without this happy creature. Nor can the creature detach itself from created things. For the will of one and the other being one, which is my divine will, They form a single body with many inseparable limbs from each other. I look at the one who lives in my divine will, and I see the heavens. I look at her and see her Son. My eyes, delighted by so much beauty, are more fixed on her and I find her see. In short, I see in it all the varieties of each thing created and I say, oh! Power of my divine Fiat, how beautiful you make for me the one who lives in you. You give him primacy over all creation. You give it the race, so fast, that it runs more than the wind. Going beyond all things, she is the first to enter my divine center to tell me, I love you, I glorify you, I adore you. Forming its echo throughout creation, all repeat after it its charming refrains. My daughter. That is why I put so much love into manifesting to you all that concerns my divine will. All that I have manifested to you on it is nothing but the entire order of her kingdom. And all this had to be manifested from the beginning of creation if Adam had not sinned. Because in each of my manifestations on my divine Fiat, man had to grow in the holiness and beauty of his Creator. My intention was to do this little by little, giving him in small sips the life of the divine will, to make it grow according to the desire of my divine will. Thus, by his sin, man interrupted my speech and silenced me. After many centuries, wanting the man to return to my Fiat, I started talking with so much love again. More than a tender mother when she loves and looks forward to giving birth to her child so that she can kiss him, surround him with his affections, love him and hold him tenderly against his maternal womb, and fill him with all his possessions and all his happiness. This is what I did when I resumed my speech by manifesting you, the whole order of the kingdom of my divine will, and the path that my creatures must follow in my kingdom. Therefore, manifesting all these truths about my Fiat was nothing less than putting back in place all the order and love that I would have kept if man had not sinned and if my kingdom had had his life on earth. In my speech, I have maintained such an order that one truth is connected to the other. If someone wanted to remove or hide some truths, they would constitute a void in the kingdom of my divine Fiat, and would take away from creatures a force that incites them to live in my kingdom. In fact, every truth about my divine will is a place she occupies to rule among creatures, as well as a way and a free place that they find to take possession of it. Thus, all the truths I have told you are so well connected to each other that if a few were removed, then we would see at this point as a sky without stars, an empty space without sun, a land without flowering. In fact, in all these truths that I have told you, there is the renewal of the whole creation. In every truth, my Fiat, more than the sun, wants to get back into action, just as I did in creation. By extending its veil of light on everything, my Fiat wants to give them so much grace to the point of giving them its creative hand to make them return to the bosom of its divine will. Therefore, everything I have told you about my divine will is of such importance that it costs me more than the whole of creation. Because it is the renewal. When an act is renewed, it asks for double the love. To make it safer, we place a double grace and a double light to give to creatures, so that we do not have to know the second suffering, perhaps more painful than the first, that we had at the beginning of creation when man sinned and formed in him failure of our love, of our light and the precious legacy of our supreme will. That is why I am so careful that nothing is lost from what I tell you about my divine will. For these truths are of such importance that if some were to be hidden, it would be like if one wanted to move the sun, or bring the sea out of its shores. What would happen to the earth? Think about it yourself. And that's what would happen if any of the truths I have manifested to you about my divine will were absent. I feel in me the continuous power of the divine Fiat, which envelopes me with such an empire, that my dying will does not have time to do the slightest act. He prides himself on not letting her die completely. For in this case, he would lose the prestige of acting on a human will which, still alive, voluntarily receives upon itself the vital act of the divine Fiat. And this will is happy to live while dying in order to grant Life and the absolute reign. To the supreme will. The latter victorious with her divine rights. Extends its borders and cries victory. On the dying will of the creature who, although dying, smiles and feels happy and honored that a divine will has its field of action in its soul. And while I felt under the empire of the divine Fiat, my sweet Jesus manifested himself in me and said to me, "Little girl of my divine will, you must know that it is the absolute rights of my divine Fiat to have primacy over every act of the creature. She who denies her primacy takes away her divine rights that are due to her in all righteousness. For he is the creator of the human will. Who will be able to tell you, my daughter, all the harm a creature can do when it reaches the point where it withdraws from the will of its creator? A single act of withdrawal from our divine will was enough to change not only the destiny of human generations, but the very destiny of our divine will. If Adam had not sinned, the eternal Word, which is the very will of the Heavenly Father, was to come to earth glorious, triumphant, and dominant, visibly accompanied by his angelic army that all had to see. With the splendor of his glory, he had to charm and draw us all to himself by his beauty, crowned king, and with the scepter of the command, to be king and head of the human family, in order to give creatures the great honor of being able to say, "We have a king who is man and God." Even more, your Jesus did not have to come from heaven to find the crippled man. For not having withdrawn from my divine will, no disease, whether of body or soul, was to exist. In fact, it is the human will that overwhelms the poor creature with suffering. The divine Fiat was inaccessible to all suffering, and so it had to be man. Therefore, he had to come to find the happy, holy man with the fullness of the goods with which he had been created. But because he wanted to do his will, he changed our destiny. As it was decreed that I had to descend to earth, and when the divinity decrees, no one can move it, I only changed the way and appearance. But I did descend, though under the most humble exteriors, poor, without the appearance of glory, suffering and weeping, charged with all the miseries and sufferings of man. The human will made me come to find the unhappy, blind, deaf, and dumb man, charged with all miseries. And I, in order to heal them, I had to take them upon myself. In order not to scare them, I had to show myself as one of them, become their brother and give them the medications and remedies they needed. The human will thus has the power to make man happy or unhappy, holy or a sinner, healthy or sick. If the soul always decides to always do my divine will and live in it, it will change its destiny. My divine will throw itself on the creature. She will make him his prey and give him the kiss of creation. It will change its appearance and manner. Clutching her on her breast, she will say to her, "Let's put everything aside, the first days of creation have returned for you and for me. You will live in our house, like our daughter, in the abundance of the goods of your Creator. Listen, my little newborn of my divine will. If man had not sinned, if he had not withdrawn from my divine will, I would have come to earth, but do you know how? Full of majesty, like when I came back from death. Even if I had my humanity similar to that of man, united to the eternal Word. How different my resurrected humanity was! Glorified, coated with light, not subject to suffering or death. I was the true divine triumphant. On the other hand, before dying, albeit voluntarily, my humanity was subject to all suffering. Even more, I was the man of sorrows. The man still had his eyes dazzled by the human will. Therefore he was still crippled. Few have seen me resurrected. This served to confirm my resurrection. Then I ascended to heaven to give man time to take medications and remedies, so that he may recover and be prepared to know my divine will in order to live not by his will, but by mine. Then I will be able to show myself full of majesty and glory among the children of my kingdom. The resurrection is the confirmation of the Fiat voluntas tua on earth as in heaven. My divine will has endured long suffering for many centuries of not having his kingdom on earth and his absolute reign. It was right for my humanity to put its divine rights in safety and carry out its original purpose and mine to form its kingdom among creatures. I will let you know how the human will has changed its destiny and that of the divine will. But you must know that in the whole history of the world, only two people have lived in the divine will without ever being theirs, and that was the sovereign queen and myself. And the difference between us and other creatures is infinite. So much so that even our body did not stay on earth. They had served as a royal palace for the divine Fiat. And the divine Fiat felt inseparable from our bodies. He therefore claimed them in his dominant strength. He took our body with our soul to the heavenly homeland. And why all this? The only reason is that our human wills had never had a single act of life. The whole kingdom and the whole field of action was that of my divine will. His power is infinite, his love is unsurpassable. After which he kept silent, and I felt immersed in the sea of the Fiat. Oh! How many things I understood! And my sweet Jesus added, "My daughter, by not doing my divine will, the creature throws confusion into the order that my divine majesty kept in creation. She dishonors herself, she goes down very low. It is placed far from its creator. It loses the origin, the means, and the end of this divine life which, with so much love, had been infused into it in the act of being created. We loved this man so much that we placed in him our divine will as the origin of life. We wanted to be charmed by him. We wanted to feel in him our strength, our power, our happiness, and our same continuous echo. And who could allow us to feel and see all this, if not our divine will moved in him? We wanted to see in man the bearer of his Creator, who was to make him happy in time and eternity. Also, when he has not done our divine will, we felt the great pain of our disordered work. Our echo has ceased. Our enchanting strength that was to delight us to give him new surprises of happiness was converted into weakness. In short, it was upside down. That is why we cannot tolerate such disorder in our work. If I have spoken so much about my divine Fiat, the goal is precisely this. We want to place man in order to that he can return to the early stages of creation, and that our will, flowing in him as a vital mood, can again form our carrier, our royal palace on earth, his happiness and ours. My abandonment is in the holy will, which, like a powerful magnet, draws me to her in order to administer me, sip by sip, her life, her light, her prodigious, admirable and adorable knowledge. My spirit wandered in her, and my sweet Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter, the first who will do my divine will and live in it will be like the yeast of his kingdom. The many knowledge I have shown you on my divine Fiat will be like flour for bread, which, by finding yeast, is fermented. But flour is not enough, it takes yeast and water to form the real bread and feeding human generations. In the same way, the yeast of the few creatures who live in my divine will is necessary for me, as well as the multiplicity of knowledge about my divine will, which will serve as a mass of light to give the necessary goods, to nourish and make happy all those who will want to live in the kingdom of my divine will. Therefore, don't worry if you are alone and so few know, in part, what concerns my divine will. Provided that the small portion of yeast is formed, united with his knowledge, the rest will follow on its own. After which I followed the acts of the divine Fiat in creation. As I followed his actions in the heavens, in the sun, in the sea, and in the wind, my sweet Jesus, manifesting himself in me, said to me, "My daughter, look. Everything that serves the whole human family universally is always alone. On the other hand, the other things, those that do not serve universally, are multiple. The sky is one, and extends over all heads. The sun is one, and it serves as light for all. Water is one, and therefore it is given to all, and even if it seems divided into fountains, seas, and wells, wherever it comes from, it has one and only strength. The earth is one, and extends under the feet of all. And it is in the supernatural order as in the natural order of creation. God is the supernatural being, and he is a. And because one is the God of all, He gives himself to all. He wraps them all. It is everywhere. It does good to all. It is everyone's life. One is the Virgin, and therefore universal Mother and Queen of all. One is your Jesus, and therefore my redemption extends everywhere and universally. Everything I have done and suffered is available to everyone. One is the little newborn of my divine will. Therefore, the entire universe will receive, universally, all goods. Demonstrations end. Of the knowledge of my divine Fiat which, like a sacred deposit, I have deposited in you. So that, more than a splendid sun, my Fiat can send its countless spokes to illuminate the whole world. Therefore, everything I tell you contains the universal virtue that will give itself to all and will do good to all. Also, be attentive and always follow my divine will. May everything be for the glory of God and the fulfillment of His Fiat.